Okay, so I just hit the live button. You guys should see me live shortly. Let me know when you can see me and you can hear me and you can hear the background music. We're still waiting on Nate right now. We're gonna give him a few minutes, but I figured I'd go live because I didn't want you guys just waiting here, you know, wondering if anything's gonna go down. Things are going down. He'll be here soon. But yes, this is a Nintendo podcast. I do every Sunday night, 9 p.m. No, not 9 anymore. 8. We're doing it at 8 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, we talk about Nintendo stuff. Today, the plan is basically to talk about Nintendo Switch sales. Sales have been really strong. We're also going to be getting into direct rumors and other little rumors surrounding these direct rumors, such as Fire Emblem and Xenoblade Chronicles 3, maybe a 1-2 Switch sequel. We're even going to talk about Legends Arceus and what that may mean moving forward, like with what could be surrounding that, and potentially Pokemon news going down the road, and then next gen situation. Like, honestly, there's a lot of meat and potatoes here. All right, looks like they kicked me off. They kicked me off camera. That's how Discord does that. I wish there was a way to turn that off. Hopefully I can even get my camera on now. Yeah, see, now it won't even let me get my camera on. Yeah, I hate it when it does that. So give me a second here, guys. Honestly, I don't even know how to fix this. I may fix it, but it always does this. So give me a second here. Just working on it. Let me see. I always have this issue because my camera jumps elsewhere. All right, one moment, guys. Let me see if I can fix it in this way. All right, hopefully we should be back live again. I had to like disconnect it for a moment. Hopefully you guys can see me. Hopefully it may do it again. That may happen again. We're just kind of waiting here. But anyway, as I was explaining, I'm sure I hate it when Discord kicks off the camera. I wish there was a way to like make sure that doesn't happen, but they always do that. So we'll see. It appears, yeah, so they do it to manage bandwidth apparently, which whatever. Anyway, I'm back live now. Hopefully, you know, Nate can get back here in 5 minutes so it doesn't kick me off camera again. Yes, so we're gonna be talking about Switch sales, and we're gonna be talking about Nintendo Direct rumors and everything circulating, rotating, going about, gyrating, any sort of circular movement kind of thing about all of this we're gonna be talking about tonight. So in the meanwhile, I'll be checking with you guys in the chat, seeing what you guys have to think and say, and we'll get things started in that way, and then we'll hopefully jump into the topics once Nate is ready and good to go. So let's see here. Amour, hello there, how are you? Lord Vader, hello. Charles Trudell, I'm glad you're here for the podcast. Thank you for watching. Taker610, hoping for a direct this week, but I would have to concede a direct on the 5th anniversary would be sweet. Paul Dune, hello there. Nishan Kelkar, hello. Yeah, hopefully Nate can come here and we can get it going. Nate is awesome. His channel is linked in the description below, Nintendo Prime. Make sure to check that out. He should be here shortly. Let's see here. J-Lo, hello. Dr. Wolfstar, what are you asking? Am I the only one who really wants Splitgate on Switch? I don't know what Splitgate is, so I don't know if you're the only one, but you may have to educate me on what Splitgate is, because it's not coming to mind right now. Having Hope 5, hi and everyone, happy Sunday. Happy Sunday to you as well, Having Hope 5. Joycey J, hello there. Super Chris, good evening. A Discord restart sometimes solves everything. The problem is that my OBS camera takes over, and then it won't let me put on the Discord camera, so I have to like restart the stream every time that happens. So it may happen again. I'm hoping it doesn't, but it may very well happen again. Yeah. Let's see here. Alrighty, it's all good. You want me, Doctor will start saying it's all good, just show some Pokemon gameplay tonight or something. Maybe I could do that. Yeah, Paulton, there was lag because I had to switch over the stream. Who else but saying Aloha Andres Pop-Tart? I'm not a Pop-Tart, but I do like Pop-Tarts. Davis Q, hello there. See, there it is. Kicked me off. So I'll just put on this screensaver for now. It's not a screensaver, it's just my wallpaper. But hopefully you guys can still hear me. And then once Nate is here, we will we'll get things going. So, but I'll leave it like this right now. I'll be faceless for a little bit. So let's see here. Everything looks and sounds good. Good. Amor, what do you think about Batman maybe going to the Switch? I did see that rumor. You know, Batman's awesome. But which Batman was it? Let me double check that, because let's see here. Let's see. The whole collection. Batman Arkham Collection. That was a good series. So, you know, getting that on Switch is definitely valuable. And with that rumor coming about, it does seem indicative of maybe a direct. In fact, it's basically... So I'm going to pull up the Twitter page for Samus Hunter, a leaker that people don't believe or do believe. But they have a decent track record. But like, for example, here they're insinuating there will be an Nintendo Direct. I agree. Let's put that away. So let's see here. They talk about a number of things. So let's actually focus on this Pokemon stuff while we're waiting for Nate here. I want to talk about this for a moment because it's interesting, and I actually kind of agree with this. So Samus Hunter says, in the coming months, I will share more updated info, but for what I recently gathered, the ability to transfer Legends exclusive Pokemon to a game where you can use them in a competitive scene, the info that got me to think of a new gen for fiscal year 2022 is likely referring to something else. So I want to talk about that for a moment, regardless of whether you believe Samus Hunter or not. To me, it's very interesting because, and for the record, this isn't necessarily about a direct, because, well, it might end up somehow relating to a direct. It's separate because it's Pokemon. So like there may be like a Pokemon Presents at the end of February, for example. But it wouldn't surprise me if we don't get a Pokemon Presents this February, just because Legends Arceus just came out and they'll give us more Pokemon news later on in the year. I can see that kind of happening. But basically, with the release of Legends Arceus and the success it's having, I really don't see Game Freak coming out with a brand new Pokemon game, say, by October or November. That doesn't seem really likely to me. But at the same time, you do have all these new Pokemon and forms and mechanics and such. Like, some of that you would have to imagine would be used in the competitive scene in some way, right? The actual battles. So they could actually be part of the tournament structure. They wouldn't create all these new Pokemon so they wouldn't be used at all. That's never happened. They will eventually be usable, but how and when? And the implication here is that there will be a game that they could do that in, right? So either A, they have an update to Sword and Shield where you can just send the Pokemon home and use them there, or there will be a new game in the future where they will be used. Maybe both. But either way, oh, Nate is adding me. Let me see here. Give me a second here, guys. Let me see if I can, I don't know, I'm just gonna put Link's face for a second. Okay. Join video call. Hey, man, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let me fix this.
Sounds good.
There we go.
I'm ready for the volume. That's it. Local center.
All right. All right, now You should be visible for everyone. Right. Looks like we're good.
Hey, we're live.
We are live. Thanks for making it. I know that was a hassle, but I appreciated making it anyway.
Well, when you're reliant on other people, things happen.
Yeah, I understand. But anyway, guys, Nate, Nintendo Prime, his channel is linked in the description below. We're going to be talking about Switch sales and Nintendo Direct rumors and a whole bunch of other good Nintendo stuff today. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, it's been a long weekend, so I'm happy to be talking some games to end it.
Yeah. There's been...
You reached out today. I was like, yes, I really want to make it. Let's try to make this work.
Let's do it. We're doing it. Yeah, man. There's a lot that's kind of happened, right? Like, we got a lot of sales numbers updates, a lot. And I've been seeing that you've been talking about quite a few things, right? So I'm definitely curious in your perspective from a few different rumors and sales numbers, because I know you're pretty good on that stuff. And you've also noticed that you've been playing Legends Arceus, and you've been having a good time with it. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You haven't been much of a Pokemon fan beforehand, but this is like really bringing you in.
Sure is.
Yeah.
My favorite Pokemon game ever.
I've been enjoying it a lot. Will I call it my personal favorite Pokemon game ever? We'll see. But it's definitely, I think it's really good. I'm enjoying it a lot. I'll say that, yeah, it's like pretty much like better than other Pokemon games. But it becomes a little nuanced when you because I do enjoy like the battle system from previous Pokemon games. Like I like that competitive sort of system. But in terms of the rest of the game, like the actual adventure part of the Pokemon games, this blows it out of the water, like 100% hands down. So we'll get to that in a moment. But let me continue on the chat, and then I'll talk about what I was talking about before Nate came in, and then we'll really jump into the swing of things here. Let's see. Yeah, so the Bagman thing I think is pretty cool, and I do think the murmurings of that might be indicative of a news blowout for other things, potentially in a direct. Potentially. Let's see here. ASAP Bro, hello there. Dwan Davis. Hey buddy, how you doing tonight? Just got on break, so what time is it far, and what should I talk about now? What you should talk? You can talk about whatever you want. But we're talking about Nintendo. Let's see here. Super Chris, when Batman Arkham City was released, it received near perfect scores. It's a very high reviewing game, a very high reviewing series. They are high quality games. Usually licensed games. Licensed games basically mean like games that use like other properties like movies or comics or cartoons or whatever. Like typically those kinds of things aren't high quality. But the Arkham series is the exception. They are very high quality third person action adventure games. Zelda-like to an extent. Very, very good.
Wasn't there a fourth Arkham game that
I thought there was like
included in any of the other collections?
I thought there was like 5. I don't know. Yeah, I'm not gonna pretend to be an Arkham expert.
There was like a prequel one or something. I think that some people are like, "Oh, it'd be cool if this collection included that." It probably won't. Apparently, it was made by completely different studios.
Oh, yeah, that would definitely cause some complications there. So let me kind of complete my thought what I was referring to earlier, and then we'll jump into the swing of things. So I was talking about the next generation of Pokemon, right? So with the release of Legends Arceus, it came out. It just came out, and I think it's gonna be really weird for Game Freak and Pokemon Company to follow that up with another mainline game in October or November. That's a very quick turnaround, and Legends Arceus very clearly took a great deal of effort from Game Freak. Like the Game Freak developed game didn't come out last year as it should have. They needed a couple extra months, and they outsourced the BDSP, so they could have a little bit more time for Legends Arceus, I feel like. So to then think that they could follow that up with an even shorter development cycle, well, it's not 10 months. They have multiple teams are doing it, but still, to then follow it up just 8 months later for another project by Game Freak, I don't think that's reasonable, and I also don't think that's even an efficient way to sort of manage their content, because they could probably afford to give Legends Arceus the focus for this upcoming holiday season. Let Legends Arceus be the big holiday seller for 2022, and it will be. Maybe release some DLC, and then next year, then you make your focus the next big game. It doesn't even have to be like we have to wait almost like a year and 8 months or 9 months for next big Pokemon game. It could be fiscal year. It could still come out this fiscal year. It could come out March 2023, for example, and you can get it out then. There were mainline Pokemon games that would come out around March in the past. I think it makes sense. And also, if, say, Zelda is coming out this November, maybe it's about time that they, the Pokemon company moves away from the November releases and have something like Zelda or Mario come out in November instead. So right now, I'm thinking the Generation 9 will not come out in time, the 3-year gap that we usually see. And instead, we're going to wait a few more months, and that's when it's coming out. And Legends Arceus is going to be the focus for the rest of this year.
I mean, that's fine. Obviously, the rumor mill disagrees with you, but the rumor mill is what it is. Doesn't mean anything they say even matters. So I just kind of look at this from the perspective of what has Game Freak been doing the last decade. When you look at their releases, obviously we have the every 3 years new gen thing, and they make the remakes in between. And they obviously they didn't internally do Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. They sent that off to some other team so they could focus on Legends Arceus. To me, I'm not so sure that Legends Arceus really detracted from Gen 9's development, because I think Gen 9's development's been going on this entire time.
Tangentially, like they're happening at the same time.
Since Sword and Shield. Like, I literally think even while Sword and Shield DLC was being worked on, they were already working on Gen 9.
Yeah.
Because they have a roadmap internally, clearly, on how they're going to handle things. And they would have known this Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl thing a couple years ago was going to be handled by a different studio. So I think what they did is, instead of having their usual 2, sometimes 3 with a smaller team starting the next project, I think they've just had 2 teams because they had somebody else working on that. Now that Legends Arceus wrapped up, at some point last year, I know, again, rumors are what they are. You don't have to believe anything, but a lot of it's Gen 9's been well in development for a while. I don't really know that it's honestly been impacted by Legends Arceus. I think what would have been impacted was Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, and that's why they didn't make that game. But we don't really know, because the funny thing about the Pokemon Company and Game Freak is, like, you watch the credits roll on Legends Arceus, and you see they had a lot of people work on this. But they also didn't. Like, the sound team was 1 person on this game. Really weird. A single person handled all the sound in the game. You usually don't see that, but that's also indicative of the way the Pokemon Company works. They don't give you massive staff. Like, I have yet to beat Legends Arceus, to be clear. I just watched the staff credits because I was very curious on how many people worked on this game, and it really wasn't that big of a team compared to other Pokemon games, which tells me if it's not really any bigger of a team, they just spent more time making it than the other part of Game Freak's been working on Gen 9 the whole time. So it could still come out this holiday. Whether or not it does, I don't know. I know both of us kind of presume Breath of the Wild 2, if it does come this year, will be a holiday title. No guarantee it could be a holiday. It could be a summer title. We have no idea what Nintendo's plans are.
Assuming it is a holiday title, right? Assuming Breath of the Wild 2 is a holiday title, that doesn't mean a Pokemon game can't come out within 2 weeks of it, right? They could have 2 big November releases. We've seen that before.
That's not a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen Nintendo do it multiple years where they've had multiple major games come out from October, November, December. All of them sell phenomenally well. Honestly, as you know, it's proven with Pokemon Legends Arceus, which is now the 2nd fastest selling Switch game, period, ever.
Yeah. Did you see that Nintendo already put out that they've sold over 6.5 million? That was like after 5 days worldwide.
Yes. It's almost done half a Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl in less than a week. That's insane.
Yeah, and Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl is selling incredibly fast, just for the record. It's like Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl was showing, it was looking like Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl would overtake maybe Sword and Shield. But now Legends Arceus is maybe even outpacing that. So it's crazy. It's crazy. In fact, there's a few people that were talking about the success for Legends Arceus. So for example, I got David Gibson here.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Good old Gibbo.
Yeah, David Gibson. This is for Japan. Pokemon Legends Arceus has sold 101,425,000 copies, making it the second best-selling Switch title of all time in its first week, behind Animal Crossing, which sold 1,881,000 copies. Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl sold 1,396,000. So, all right. Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl came out in November. That's already but that week is like a week where people are, well, in Japan they don't celebrate Thanksgiving, so I don't know if it's an increased sales time period for that specific week.
Increased times like the last week of December.
Okay.
That's
yeah. So all right, I was gonna make an argument that Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl's week in November should have been stronger because it was November, but that would only apply to America.
Well, that's the crazy thing about Switch. Like worldwide, it doesn't seem to matter when they drop big games. They just sell.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like Switch itself launched in March. Didn't matter. Couldn't make enough of them. We've seen like Splatoon 2 dropped, early spring, early summer, late spring. Boom. One of the best selling games, top 10 selling games in Switch history. Like it really doesn't seem that the Switch audience, and I think Nintendo has really tested this a lot, like releasing Smash Bros in December, skipping the entire big sales period in the US. Like they've tested over and over again these different release dates for their big games. Animal Crossing obviously dropping before the end of a fiscal year and being the second best selling game and on pace to sell over 40 million, just like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I look at this as Switch is showing Nintendo that if you release a quality game, it don't matter when it is. You don't need to wait for holidays anymore. I think the whole saving things for holidays has kind of gone by the wayside, at least based on the sales results throughout this generation, where, yeah, you can drop a Breath of the Wild in March and it's going to sell 25 million copies lifetime. You can drop Animal Crossing in March. You can drop Smash Bros in December. You can drop Splatoon in the summer. It doesn't really matter. If it's a good game, Switch owners are swooping in. I mean, God, what was not the last Mario Party game, because I know obviously we're in early sales for that. The sales are looking really good, by the way, for Mario Party Superstars. But the first Mario Party game on Switch, that was dropped in the summer, and that's selling, a top 10 selling Switch game. So, and Pokemon, by the way, has not always been a holiday. They've done early year releases before. I think the only one that keeps popping in my mind was Black and White 2, because that came out at the end of DS while 3DS was on the market. That was a little bit of a weird release, but Pokemon Company's always kind of late to joining new systems. So yeah, it's crazy to see the sales of Pokemon Legends Arceus. We'll see how evergreen it is. I feel like of any Pokemon game, this has that chance to be, well, maybe the most evergreen because it's so different.
Right, because the Gen 9 comes out and it's pretty much like a traditional Pokemon game. It's a different style of gameplay, right? Like when Gen 9 comes out, it kind of makes Sword and Shield inferior, right? So like there's less reason to buy Sword and Shield once Gen 9 comes out. So to your point, yeah, like Legends Arceus is it's still considered a mainline core game, but it's definitely a different style of gameplay from the other mainline games. So it's still going to have legs when the next game comes out. So I totally agree with that. It's probably going to sell very strong for years. And I don't know. It potentially could become the best-selling Pokemon game of all time. Like that's the kind of potential I think we're sort of seeing with these early sales numbers for Legends Arceus. It's kind of crazy. Like just how successful this game was going to be, right? Like we were speculating, oh well, maybe it'll sell like 10 million, 15 million, but it really is looking like, because there was a debate that there's been, right? And I've gone back both ways. Like maybe it'll be less, maybe it'll be more, but from one perspective, you take a look at Pokemon. Pokemon sells because it's Pokemon. You put it on the Switch, oh, it's Pokemon in HD. Okay, we're getting it. It's like it's gonna sell really strong. But another consideration is, but the open-ish world style gameplay, right? Like people, if you add that to it, maybe then it sells more, right? But the argument has been, because it's the open-ish world style of gameplay, will alienate a lot of Pokemon fans, so that big install base you usually see for Pokemon games, it'll be subtracted somewhat, but maybe it'll be leveraged by the newer fans because of the open world-ish style of gameplay. But what we're seeing is that most of the traditional Pokemon fans are still getting it, but it's also being boosted by people who are more enthralled with that newer style of gameplay. So it's looking like, it's still early, but it's looking like it might be the case that the overall equation here is gonna mean more people buying this game than other Pokemon games. We'll see once everything is said and done a few years from now, because it's going to take a while before Legends Arceus would even get to, say, 25 million or so. But it might. It's a heck of a start. If you're going to get there, this is how you start.
You know, with it being the second fastest launch compared to Animal Crossing, like if it stays on that trajectory, I mean, Animal Crossing did 30 million the first year. I mean, I think this game's easily doing 15. If Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl did it in 2 months, I don't see how this game doesn't hit 15. And here's
another interesting thing to consider, though. Animal Crossing should be over 20. Yeah, maybe you're right. But something else to note here: Animal Crossing, while it was the fastest selling, it came out in the perfect time for that because of the pandemic situation. Legends Arceus is not getting the pandemic boost. It's getting the, oh my god, it's Pokemon with semi-open world gameplay boost. So that's the difference, right? Like, Legends Arceus isn't being boosted because of the situation regarding the world. It's getting boosted by the situation regarding the game. So I'm not trying to take away from Animal Crossing. I'm not saying it's not deserving of its sales, but I'm just saying that Legends Arceus, the fact that it's putting out these numbers with no inherent boost beyond just the game itself, like, I mean, if you think about it, you could argue maybe the game shouldn't sell as well because it came out in January, 2 months after Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. Like, a lot of Pokemon fans already bought a Pokemon game. Why are they going to buy another? Right? And again, I understand your point that Switch games just seem to sell regardless of when they come out. But it's not even just a Switch game that came out 2 months later. It's a Pokemon game that came out 2 months later. And people are still buying it.
Yeah, but it's also a very different Pokemon game, right? Like, we're not talking about something that replaces Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. It doesn't. It doesn't replace. It's
not redundant. You're right.
No, like it is a mainline game, but it's not like the other ones. There's literally no other Pokemon game in existence like this particular game, which sort of makes it stand on its own. Like, it doesn't matter if you played any prior Pokemon games. You could start with this one.
Let me ask you a question.
It's okay to start with this one. You don't need prior knowledge.
Let's say Breath of the Wild 2 comes out this November, okay? And then at some point this year, Nintendo announces a 2D Zelda, and that comes out next January, 2 months after Breath of the Wild 2. Do you think Breath of the Wild 2 sales numbers would impact that 2D Zelda game that comes out 2 months later?
Do I think its sales numbers would impact what? Sorry. I was trying to follow.
Right.
My mind got lost.
Yeah. So let's say Breath of the Wild 2 comes out this November, and a new 2D Zelda comes out next January, so a year from now. Will that 2D Zelda suffer sales-wise somewhat because Breath of the Wild 2 came out 2 months prior?
No. Absolutely not.
I think it might be kind of hard to prove because the game can only have it
happened.
Yeah. And it's not gonna happen.
We've never had anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest could be like if Twilight Princess HD Wind Waker HD dropped this summer and then they released Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
Would either sales be impacted? And even then,
quick random thing. I'm totally aware that square fell down. I'm just gonna ignore it.
I wasn't gonna say anything. I've had my squares fall down before.
I'm 100% aware. I just feel like I have to say something now because it's gonna bother me the entire stream if I don't at least acknowledge its existence. I am 100% aware. Anyway.
Been there.
Yeah. The walls here just fluctuating. Oh, actually, random thing that should be noted. This is gonna be the last time you're gonna see me in this room for at least a few weeks. So I'm traveling to home, but not home. So I'm not gonna have like a set for a little while.
Home away from home.
Yeah, I'm gonna be at my parents' house probably, and I'm gonna be doing the podcast from like the guest room. So you're just gonna see like a random room in the background for a few weeks at least. Just so that's known. Anyway.
Bring your little Charmander guy with, put it in the background, it'll be all good.
It won't fit on the plane.
Oh, darn.
No. I don't know. Legends Arceus, that game is just I don't know. The sales are ridiculous.
I mean, I'm not really surprised because there was obviously a lot of optimistic hype around the game just based on the premise, because it is so different. And I think there are so many, Pokemon fans who just weren't really into Pokemon, like me. Like, I've enjoyed Pokemon, but I also, as I found out with Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, just really don't like the gameplay loop anymore. Looking for a fresh change. You have longtime fans being like, well, we buy the spin-offs, maybe we could try this one if it's reviewing well. Then you had the reviews come out. All the reviews backed up that, hey, look, people can complain about the visuals, complain about the frame rate. Don't really matter because the gameplay is just so fun. And that's really what drove the reviews to be, I think, the 5th or 4th best reviewed Pokemon game or something like that. Kind of depends on, I don't know if it's still at an 85 on Metacritic or if it fell a point or not. But it reviewed well. So it reviewed really, really well, and it had a lot of hype going into it. I think that on launch day, it became like the #1 stream game on Twitch or something like that, viewer-wise, which is just impossible to think about on Twitch because Twitch has so many of the bigger games that are consistently up. And yeah, it had a big fall off on day 2. That happens all the time, but it's rare a game launches and even can get up there. And this game did that because there were so many big streamers playing it. And that obviously helped drive hype for it as well. All the general reactions to it from all the YouTubers I'm surrounded with anyway seems to be, we really like this game. Like, we don't know what it is. It's just so addicting. It's so fun. And no, not everybody likes it. I've had debates with some fans out there that don't like the game. And I think that this is one of those situations where I remind people that it's okay for people not to like something or not like the direction or think that this is more of a skeleton game and whatever the next one is the real one you're going to like. I don't know. I think it's a bit presumptuous to try to guess at this point where this game's going to go in the future before we get what I think is obviously going to be DLC, which I think DLC will paint more what they're thinking for next for this series than, well, it's still part of the mainline. So I guess, I don't know, but whatever they decide to do next.
I'm actually curious.
What they do with the DLC.
I'm curious, a couple things. One, so you agree there's going to be DLC for Legends Arceus then?
Oh, yeah.
Right.
They've made that clear after Sword and Shield. They're probably going to make DLC for any brand new mainline game.
Okay. So, I mean, if that's the case, then if DLC is coming out, I feel like that increases the likelihood of a new game not coming out this year.
But here's the thing. I don't think that the team working on Legends Arceus was ever going to work on Gen 9 in the first place.
Okay.
That's kind of my bugaboo there. I think the Gen 9 team is the Gen 9 team. It has nothing to do with this team. This is the team that would have been making Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl and then be making whatever's next after that. And they're not doing that. They're making this. And I think Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl sales, I just want to ask your opinion on this. Those sales are incredible. You think this tells Game Freak we don't need to do our remakes in-house anymore?
Yeah. Why?
Because those sales are hard to...
I mean, they clearly have made the best decision because... I know fans are going to disagree and be frothing at the mouth from this, but I mean, like, if they didn't make the best decision, they clearly made a better decision, right?
A good business decision.
Right, from a business perspective. But basically, so we got Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl.
Guys. They have sold over 20 million Pokemon games in general in the last 2.5 months.
We're just talking. We're talking about mainline Pokemon games, right? Because that doesn't count spin-offs like Pokemon Snap or Mystery Dungeon or anything like that. Those are other things that have sold well on their own. We're just talking about the mainline games. So yeah, absolutely. They clearly have been making business decisions that are making them more money now than they've ever had. So I think that from that perspective. But then also like Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl wasn't a dumpster fire. It was solid. Now, I'll also say, in my opinion, I don't even think it's really an opinion. It's pretty factual. Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl is lacking in polish compared to other Pokemon games. Now, I understand that some people may interpret that and be like, you're wrong. Sword and Shield was an unpolished turd. What I'm getting at is that when you play Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, there are certain things about the mechanics or glitches that occur that don't normally occur. It's evident that they'd use a different engine, that this is development that was developed, outside of the typical team, and this is a new team working on Pokemon, and so they're figuring things out. I think if they continue to use ILCA, that the next one, or the one after that, like, they're gonna progressively be better at having the games polished and running more like a traditional Pokemon game. And it's not super far off. But I'm just saying, when you play through the game and you have a history of playing all the games, you will notice a little bit of a difference. That is there, but it's not significant enough to like cause any like major issues, I would say. And again, in the future, I think they'll be improved upon. However, when you take a look at Legends Arceus, they also are able to do that, right? And Legends Arceus potentially could be the best-selling Pokemon game yet, or at least it's looking to compete, and that's astounding in and of itself. And they have both those games coming out in a 2-month period. So if they follow up with another Pokemon game this November and still do Arceus DLC, if they can make that work, I mean, more power to them. I'm thinking we're gonna wait a few extra months though. That's my perspective right now, because I do think there has to be some space.
Well, we'll see. I obviously neither of us know. We're just guessing.
We're speculating.
I know the rumors disagree with you, but honestly, guys, I know I report on a lot of rumors. I don't put a ton of stock personally in most of the rumors. Like, I'll get hyped over some Zelda stuff, but I don't actually believe most of it. So it's more so this is fun to talk about and fun to hope, and we'll see. Supposedly, rumors say Gen 9's well in development. I don't know.
Oh, it's definitely in development. I think it's like the next big game. I just think we're gonna wait a few extra months. So, but I'll say this on that note before we move on.
Yeah.
Typically, when we're getting a new generation of Pokemon, not talking about like a Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, or like an Oris or a remake or anything like that, like just a new generation, right? Like Gen 8, Gen 8, 9, things like that. We hear about that game early on in the year. So if we go through this entire month and we're into March and we still haven't had any official announcement of a next generation Pokemon game, to me that says, based off history, the game's not coming out for this holiday. Now, the other thing, though, that doesn't mean there wouldn't be a Pokemon game to come out at the end of the year, though, because, for example, I want to say, like, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, that was announced, like, in May of 2018, and it came out in November, right? So there can still be a mainline Pokemon game that will come out, even if we don't have an announcement by the end of this month. Just historically speaking, that usually means it's not a next-generation game. So, just simply based on historical precedents, wait until at least March. If there's no announcement of a next-generation Pokemon game, there might still be like a Let's Go style game or something for this holiday, but I think it would mean that next generation is coming out next year. Gen 9.
Yeah, so they announced Sword and Shield in February 2019.
Exactly.
They technically teased they were making a game a couple years prior, but that doesn't really mean anything. They're always making games. So I would say, Pokemon Day coming up and stuff like that. They usually announce whatever their plans are for Pokemon games pretty early in the year. Mm-hmm. So we were not going to have to wait long. The next couple months, we'll know what, if anything, else they have. I mean, there's going to be other Pokemon games, so they always have spin-offs.
There's going to be something, yeah.
Yeah, could be another Pokken tournament coming or something. Who knows? Could be anything. So they're going to announce something. So we'll see. That's the beauty of this conversation, is we don't really have to wait long to know what they're going to do.
That is good because we're in February already. In just a few weeks, we're going to have a good idea of what's coming next for Pokemon, which is awesome.
We don't have to. We're not speculating on. This is going to get announced at E3. Like, no, we're not talking about June. That's too long. We got news coming soon. Maybe a direct, maybe a Pokemon thing.
Well,
we'll see.
I'll throw this out though, since we're saying this. I think there's a possibility. I'm not sure, right? But I think there's a possibility we go through February without a Pokemon Presents.
Yeah, that could happen. If that happens, then it'll for sure be in March, I think.
I think for sure we'll get a presentation before E3.
You think just before? Okay.
Just before E3.
That gives a pretty big window.
It's a pretty big window. But what it suggests is that there's no Generation 9 coming out for the holiday. It's coming out later. They may even announce it. And so let's say we get Pokemon Presents in May. They may announce Generation 9 in May, but it may not come out till March 2023. Right. So, which wouldn't be too different from when they announced like Legends Arceus last February and it comes out the next January, right? So it's still within a year of announcement to release, but not quite for the holiday. So, we'll see. We're gonna have a better understanding in just a few weeks, which is the fun part about this.
In games.
Yeah.
It was really dragging in January, and all of a sudden we're just slammed. The news doesn't stop. We got game drops. I know February is a bit light for major Switch games coming out. There are some nice indie titles coming. But now we're getting the news. The Batman news that came out from the retailer that shows that at least one of those games will be on a physical cart. The rest, who knows?
Yeah.
And, so we had that news. Obviously, we had all the sales data dump. Obviously, Pokemon Legends Arceus just came out, and who knows what the hell else? Maybe a direct or something else crazy this month. It's actually getting exciting again. Hasn't felt this way it felt like I had a couple months there where it's kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
we have a lot of thumbs and wait for what's next, and now we're here. So I'm so pumped.
We are here. So before we move on, I'm gonna check in with the chat for a little bit, and then we'll start tackling a few other things. So Robin SIID or Robin Seed, I'm not sure how to pronounce your name, but you added me, and he was referring to both of us, Nate, and said, "I would like your opinion. Do you both think that the recent Breath of the Wild 2 rumor is right about Zelda herself being both playable and in another dimension?" I think I heard that. You talked about it, actually, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, you covered it, so how about you give me your thoughts on it first?
Well, one, that entire rumor batch I don't think is real. Let's start with that. Came from 4chan, from somebody who basically was acting like they were on the QA testing team at Nintendo of America, which is possible. And they basically talked about the beginning that they've QA tested, because they wouldn't be QA testing the whole game, and they always split it up between different testers.
Right,
but
that's how they can find out who's leaking.
Yeah. So like, there isn't a single tester besides people who directly are working on the game that play start to finish. It's split up in sections. For those who don't know how QA testing typically works, and I can speak on this, I literally used to be a QA tester. Not for Nintendo, but for a couple other companies, and literally you never played the whole game. The only time was if, I would say if it was an MMO style game. There was one I was QA testing a bit where kind of impossible to like section off an MMO kind of game. But besides that.
Or like an open world game. Like if it's open world.
I mean, they still section off open world, believe it or not. It's insane. Like literally you just hit a wall and you just can't go past it.
Okay.
Happens. But again, that's because, if a leak comes out, they can be like, this QA testing group, clearly that's where it came from. Anyways, so I don't think any of it's true. So let's start with that it was just a fun conversation, and I take any excuse to talk about Breath of the Wild 2. I'll basically take it. So someone could literally go to Nathan at NintendoPrime.net and send me a fake insider information thing, and I'll probably end up making a video on it on a boring day because I like talking Zelda. Not because I think you're right.
There you go, guys.
Just being honest. You can say it degrades my channel. I really don't care. Any excuse to talk Breath of the Wild 2, I'll talk about it. Even if, I'll say this. Only if I like the idea. And that's the thing about this one was I like the ideas presented, including this duality of playing Link and Zelda in two different worlds, where what Zelda does impacts Link's world. This makes me think a lot of Ocarina of Time, where what you do 7 years ago, 7 years in the future.
Right.
So like Nintendo's done something like this before. They just never had two separate characters. Technically, there was a side quest in Majora's Mask that kind of did that, but that's besides the point. So I like the idea. Obviously, there's been a high demand for Zelda to be playable in some form for a long time. I could argue she technically was in Spirit Tracks, but again, she was inside a Phantom, so it's not the same thing. And she wouldn't be doing combat in this game. So like you guys might like, oh, she was badass in Hyrule, Age of Calamity. Sure, but that's not what the rumor says here. She'll be able to use the Sheikah Slate abilities to solve puzzles. And by the way, I do think Zelda will have the Sheikah Slate. We've never seen Link even with it in any of the footage.
He doesn't have it.
And it was originally her slate anyways, before it was Link's.
Yeah, it makes sense to give it back to her. Doesn't she have it in the final cutscene? Doesn't she have it at the end of the game when they're walking on the hill?
Yeah, she is holding it at one point in the game. Yeah.
I mean, at the end though, specifically at the very end of the game, like that extra cutscene you unlock. Isn't she holding it then?
Yep.
Yeah. So
I think so. I'm pretty sure. It's been a while since I've watched.
You know what?
Cutscene.
There's only one way to know for sure.
There's only one way. I'm gonna rewatch all the cutscenes before the game comes out just to refresh my mind on everything, because there's always gonna be little minor details because I haven't seen some of these cutscenes in a few years. But either way, it would make sense that she, Age of Calamity, the unofficial, official prequel, whatever you guys want to call it, spin-off, doesn't really matter. She had the Sheikah Slate there. So, yeah, and we haven't seen Link in any of the trailers use any of the Sheikah Slate abilities. They've been new abilities instead. with his arm or whatever. So I don't think he even needs the Sheikah Slate. And I also think that changes up the gameplay some as well, where we get different ways to manipulate the world, which will be interesting to see what ideas they come up with, besides obviously the reverse time mechanic they showed. And obviously going up to the sky.
I'm just going to show you guys real quick that she 100% has a Sheikah Slate at the end of Breath of the Wild 1. Let's see here.
And I do agree with you, Birdman. I do think Age of Calamity, personally, I think it's canon. And I know that Enuma never officially said it was a prequel. He said it's the only game that will explain anything that happened before. But, all right, let's see this.
Yeah, I mean, there it is. You should be able to see the Sheikah Slate right on Zelda's butt. Well, on her waist.
I think it's blank for everyone.
Is it? Is it still blank?
The black.
It should show for a moment. Yeah, it just takes me a moment.
It showed up. It just took a moment, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there it is. That's the end of the game.
Yep.
Link's behind her. They walk away. They live happily ever after, except not really, because then Ganondorf kills everyone. But,
yeah, not really. She hints that there's more going on, yeah.
But at least for the ending of this game, she has it. So the implication is she is using it at the end of Breath of the Wild. So, yeah.
So she probably has all the powers. And it would be weird if we just never got to use those abilities again in any form, even if they're not Link's primary abilities. So I like the idea that we get to play as Zelda for a little bit, even if it's just a puzzle-solving perspective, because all those abilities, as we saw in Breath of the Wild, can be used for puzzle solving. So it would be cool to see them still involved in some way. And I also thought another part of that rumor that was interesting was something about how they replace shrines with something else that's even more ancient. And all over the world, and it made me think, okay,
Zonai shrines instead of Sheikah shrines.
You replace shrines with what's basically shrines, but they just look different. Okay, thanks for the different aesthetic, but if they serve the same purpose, then they're basically just shrines. But I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if shrines or something like it are still a thing. But we'll see. Obviously, the biggest thing that I loved about the rumor is that dungeons come back and there's gonna be like 6 of them or something like that.
6 big ones? Yeah, I'm okay with that. Yeah, if it's 6 big ones and say there's like 60 like mini shrines, right? I think that's actually maybe a better ratio. And then if also you have there's like a lot more side quests that are like fun side quests. And then there's more depth to the world and the characters and things going on there. And then you do have this co-op. It's not a co-op mechanic, but this 2 different player mechanic where one time you're sometimes playing as Zelda and sometimes playing as Link. I think that's conceivable. And I do think there is somewhat of an implication there with Zelda being involved with both trailers in the way she is. Normally for Zelda games, Zelda is just like a background character basically. So the fact that she was featured so much with the first trailer and the second trailer we see her falling down. Yeah, I think that maybe there could be something there. There could be a situation where Zelda is playable to some extent. But you could also argue the second trailer implies that something bad happens to her. We don't know what happens, right? But it could also be a situation where she just is a damsel in distress again and Link has to save her because she fell down a hole. I hope it's not that, but it might be.
Yeah. Who knows? And like another thing about that rumor says something like the undead form of Ganondorf apparently is invincible or something. So like part of the game is you're trying to restore him, which I always thought was kind of weird. It's like, so you restore him to power to put him back in the state he's already in. That makes no sense to me.
It's a red flag. The biggest red flag is that there's all this information that's from different parts of the game, which goes against what...
his argument was that this was all the beginning of the game. This is all like opening cutscenes, opening story setup.
You want to know what's also interesting though? Conveniently, it's the beginning of the game. Yeah. Like I'm not saying it can't be.
I know, right? Because we just talked about how QA split up. Why are we getting the beginning? That's a very convenient thing to get. Yeah, again, I guys, it's on 4chan, and by the way, this doesn't mean there aren't legit leaks on 4chan. There's a ton of legit leaks on 4chan because it's the best place. If you don't want to get caught, you leak on 4chan. When you see leaks on Twitter, when you see like from an actual developer, actual person in the know on Nintendo's PR team, if they want to leak something themselves and they don't want to go through somebody else, you go to 4chan because it's untrackable, untraceable. As long as you don't drop a specific hint that only you would know about, it's pretty hard for the company to be like, you're guilty, you're fired. So 4chan does have a lot of real leaks. But because of its anonymous nature and because there's no accountability or ability to say this person on 4chan got something
hard
right
to
before, so
verify.
we should trust the next thing they say, you can't verify anything. So it's also where a lot of fake leaks go up. So yeah, again, I usually treat everything from 4chan as it's complete bullshit. I did a Mario Kart 9 rumor from them, I think like 2 years ago. And I noted at the beginning of that video as well, I don't really believe any of this, but this concept is really, really cool. And when fans, which I presume this is a fan, coming up with a really neat concept, I like the ideas presented here. And it seems like a lot of stuff that you could conceivably come up with on your own, just watching what we already have. So, I don't know. I think it's cool. I think the biggest thing is obviously traditional dungeons. That's the big, like, are we getting those back? Are we not? Many people hope we are. Obviously, Breath of the Wild is my favorite Zelda game of all time, and that was without traditional dungeons. So, I'm just going to trust Nintendo to do whatever the hell they're doing with this game. What I find most interesting, and this is based on actual facts, is we don't know the title. Because it apparently reveals a major thing. Like, Breath of the Wild didn't reveal a major thing with its title. There was nothing in that title that spoiled anything. But something in this title supposedly spoils something in the game. Which I find interesting because they usually... Like, if you look at the titles of Zelda games, it's like an item it's named after. You know, like Majora's Mask. Okay, that's literally named after a mask. It doesn't really tell you much about the mask. So apparently there's something in the title, and that's what I find interesting because they're really holding that title back. And I have no idea what it's going to be. I can't wait. I hope they don't just keep it the sequel to Breath of the Wild. God, that just reminds me of like new Super Mario Brothers. Like, no! Give me a real subtitle. But it's Zelda. We're gonna get one, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, we will, for sure. So let's. Nate, I don't know if you can change anything, but I've noticed there's a little bit of like my voice is going through your microphone a little bit. Yeah.
How about now?
No, you can hear me fine though still?
Yep, I hear you fine.
Right,
you hear me fine?
Yep. Okay, we're good.
Yeah, my mic was turned up a little too loud anyways. It was hitting the red.
Gotcha. So, do you want to jump into the direct rumors, or do you want to continue talking about sales? What direction you want to go?
Go for it.
I feel like we were talking about Legends Arceus.
I don't put a lot of credence in these Breath of the Wild rumors, so...
Yeah, I mean, it's all plausible. It's all plausible, but, you know.
Yeah. Just fun. It's just fun conversation.
Yeah. Let's focus more on the sales stuff, and then we'll talk about some of the direct rumors. And there's some connection between the both of them. But let's talk about the big one. The big one being Nintendo Switch has sold over 103.5 million units as of December 31st, 2021. Not even 5 years out on the market. That doesn't happen until this March, and the system has already sold over 100 million. That's impressive. It's pretty good. It's doing numbers. Also, software is at 766.41. Yeah. It's doing very, very, very well. I always like comparing... Yeah, so let me just put this up here. So, there we go. Hopefully you guys should be able to see that in a moment.
What's crazy is if Switch is around like another 3 years, it's on pace to be the first video game system for Nintendo to hit 1 billion games sold.
That's what I was thinking. That's where I was really sort of focused on. The software. We're more than 3/4 there. Just like for perspective, right? Like look at like just the ratios of hardware to software compared to say 3DS. Right? Like there's a significant difference. Like people are buying more games on Switch than they were buying on 3DS. For Wii U. Although, you know, it's a pretty good ratio though. It's a pretty good hardware to software ratio. 13 to 100. That's almost like 1 to 10 versus like the 1 to 7.6 on Switch. But you could also argue because it sold so poorly, that's kind of part of it. Although at the same time, like the Wii U kind of went through its entire generation, the Switch is still... I don't want to say... It's not... I don't like that people are saying it's in the middle. It's if you consider the middle like a 3-year window, maybe we're somewhere in that middle window, but we're definitely in the later part of that window, in my opinion. Like, I don't think the Switch is going to go another 5 years before we see the next Switch, right? Like, I think that term or that phrase we hear where the Switch is midway through its generation is a little misleading. I still think the Switch has a few years of prominence left, but I don't think we have another 5 years before we get Switch 2. Like, just look at Wii sales, right? So Wii sold about 100 million, Soft was at 921. So you could look at this and say, whoa, look at this. This is clearly better than Switch. Yes and no, because the Wii, was selling systems for 6 years, basically, right? 2006 to 2012. So it managed 101 million hardware units there, right? But also it was selling games for at least those 6 years. And then, of course, beyond that as well, right? And this is where they're at. Switch is going strong, and these numbers are going to continue to increase. And it's also worth noting, a lot of these software sales are sort of boosted by things like Wii Fit, Wii Sports, Just Dance. These software sales are games like Mario Kart, Zelda, Pokemon, Smash Brothers, Luigi's Mansion. So like there's a difference in the kind of software sales we're seeing, but also we're still well into the Switch's life cycle. There's still years left of prominence. This is the Wii complete. Point is, I feel like the Switch has very, very healthy numbers. And it's,
do you think the software attach rate to console attach rate is going to increase over time or stay the same? Because like what was incredible was Wii is everyone assumed, oh, if you bought a Wii, you only bought like 2 games. That's a 9-to-1 attach ratio. Like that's really good. We're at about a 7-to-1-ish attach ratio with the Switch, which by the way is also incredible if you look at the history of Nintendo systems. And it could reach $1 billion in sales while the Switch sells 130, 140 million. Who really knows? Which still wouldn't be a 9-to-1. So I'm very curious. Like, do you think it's going to increase?
Yes.
Or do you think it's just 7-to-1 seems like a pretty good?
No, I think it's going to get better, and the reason why is because, Nintendo mentioned it right there. It was something like 95% of all Switch owners use their Switch at least once last year. Right, what that indicates is that most of the install base is active.
98 million, wasn't it? 98 million active Switches in the last year.
Something like that. We're well above 90%, right? We're closer to 100% than we are 90%. It appears of Switch owners still using their Switch at least once last year. What that suggests is that people have been using their Switch for years and will for years, and they're still playing games on it, right? So even as hardware sales slow down, and I think there was mention of that the hardware sales are starting to slow down a little bit, right? Software is still going to sell. So what's going to happen is that the hardware will start to slow down year by year, but software sales are still going to maintain. I mean, just look what we're seeing with Legends Arceus, for example. I think that's a strong indicator that software is not really slowing down. People already have the systems. They're simply going to play the games that come out for the system. So I actually see the ratio getting better towards software. I wouldn't be surprised if it is like a 1-to-9 ratio 2 to 3 years from now.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's going to be really, really interesting, just to see how that plays out. I think so. Someone broke down an analysis of the software sales like right now of the current best-selling games and how they've been selling every year. And there's some interesting things I see in some of the analysis out there. Like, I don't know if Breath of the Wild 2 is going to impact it much, but Breath of the Wild's on pace to actually sell over 30 million if it keeps it up for like the next 2 years.
Yeah.
It just has to sell like 3 mil, 2.5, 3 mil a year in the next 2 years. It's going to be over 30. Like, that's a Zelda game, 30 million? Excuse me? Mario Kart 8 approaching 45 to 50 million? What? Animal Crossing over 40 million? And again, these numbers haven't happened yet. This is just the current rate of sales year over year. It's insane what Switch is doing, man. And like, if we think about this, we look at this looks like end of life numbers.
Still going strong.
Furukawa just said we're still in the middle of the life cycle. again for the third straight year.
Oh, you can't see my air quotes. You guys can't see my air quotes.
Whatever that means. For the third straight year.
Let me go back to camera.
I mean,
midway.
Think about this. We're almost into year 6, and Furukawa has warned us, hey, we can't keep this damn thing on shelves. We're just letting you know, we can't make enough. I know a lot of that's pandemic related and obviously semiconductor shortages, but also we're heading into year 6 and Nintendo has a system that's selling out. I'm even fathoming any company, year 6, as of March 4th, or you want to say March 3rd at some point, fine. It begins year 6, and you might not even be able to buy one that day because it's sold out. It's so insane. There was a restock of the white version of the Switch OLED today on Amazon. It was out within 10 minutes. I'm like, how is demand this still crazy high? This far, you see 100 million in sales. Nintendo barely has any systems up there. You figure, oh, they've already peaked, but they haven't. This is just such uncharted territory. I'm flabbergasted. I don't think it's a surprise how many Nintendo YouTube channels have blown up over the last 4 years. This might be the most popular Nintendo's ever been. This is insane.
I agree.
Everyone's happy except for the companies that decided not to support Switch for some reason.
Something wrong with them. Yeah.
And they're obviously happy with what they're doing as well. Yeah. Clearly. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I am curious, right? So I want your thoughts on. Actually, though, hold on. Before I do this, because what I'm going to bring up matters. I couldn't find the Q&A myself, but I saw that David Gibson sort of did the translations for it. There was something that was said in particular in relation to the future of the Switch. I'm pretty sure you know what I'm referring to. There we go. I found it. We'll put it up on stream for everyone to see. So, question. How think about the 98 million versus next console? This is a translation, hence why the broken English. Answer. Into €60 Switch, and we are maintaining momentum. We are looking at how to expand and grow this 100 million users leading into next gen. Device. The parentheticals sounds like next device will be backwards compatible. I'm pretty sure that's just speculation, but I mean it makes sense.
Yeah, it's hard to know till the full English comes out. Just like the response on when they were asked about NFTs and the metaverse, and it was inferred that they really were just talking about the metaverse. They kind of ignored the NFT part of the question. It's one of those. The English version will come out some point this week, and then we'll get clarification on some of this, because a lot of it's going to be interpretations. Or what really sucks, and this happens even in the official translations, is Japanese does not translate very well to English. This is actually really well known among translators out there that do it, that the intonations are completely different in Japan versus English language. So what exactly certain things mean, who knows? Obviously his interpretation was that they were talking about how, or inferring that they would do a transition where it's backwards compatible, which I think is fair. I think it's fair to expect it, I guess. We're using cartridges like we did with 3DS and DS. 3DS was full backwards compatible with DS. So if they're keeping it like a similar portable home console-like device, I mean, backwards compatibility seems fair. I know you could talk about all the tech reasons that it might be harder to do and stuff, but that's not really for us to worry about. That's about Nintendo. PlayStation 5 is completely different tech than PS4, and they're able to make that work for the most part. Xbox has it backwards compatible all the way to the original Xbox. Now, I know it's not every game, but so if Nintendo wants to do it and wants to make that a feature and thinks it's important for the transition, which I think it could be important for the transition, because it could make people not feel like they need to transition, but if they do, they're not losing anything. If they do, if you go trade your Switch in for the next one, you can still play everything else. But we'll see. Nintendo hasn't always handled console transitions very well, so
this is the time to do it, though.
Yeah, well, they better nail it.
Yeah,
I mean,
how
many times has Furukawa said we don't want to be falling off the cliff like we always do. Okay,
Right.
well then
Yeah.
you got to do something different.
And I mean, they're already doing better because normally by year 5, by the end of year 5, there's like no games to play. Sales are
complete. Might be getting the best year yet.
Yeah, right,
Maybe,
exactly.
Well, 2017 is hard.
It's at least competitive, right?
Yeah,
it's at least competitive.
One of the best.
Right. So, Nintendo's doing well on that end, but it is going to be very, very interesting to see how they transition to the next system, because they don't want. Basically, what they want to do is they basically want to have Switch sell for obviously a few more years, and it still maintain like close to 20 million for at least a couple more years, even if not like 15, 10 million, right? Like still sell as strong as you can.
If they can stay above 15, I think they'll be happy for a few years.
Right. Yeah. But what they want is for the next system to come out and for it to be comparable to base Switch, the initial Switch when it first came out. Like, and they want to just kind of maintain that. Like, I think ideally what Nintendo wants to do is basically average like about 20 million sales and somewhere between 15 and 20 million sales in hardware not forevermore. Huh?
Yeah, just instead of dropping off and then hoping you could rebuild, how about let's just not drop off?
Right. Like, if there is a drop off with Switch, make up for it with Switch 2.
Yeah, like release it while the Switch is still technically relevant and could be milked a little bit more, but you know, maybe it's time. It's getting long in the tooth, 6, 7 years in, 8 years in. Okay, yeah, we still got sales momentum, but like if we keep this up, no one's gonna care.
It's kind of like
they did with Wii. They milked the hell out of Wii, and then it just fell off.
Well, they weren't ready to have a new hardware to come out when Wii was dead for a year before Wii U came out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They announced Wii U and Wii already wasn't.
Actually, you could argue Wii was dead for 2 years because 2011 was when Skyward Sword came out. That was the last like big like hardcore Nintendo game.
Yeah, and 2011 sales for Wii were
trash, right? Like that whole year it was basically wait for Skyward Sword. We waited for
2010 felt like the year they should have released the new system.
Yeah.
2009 sales were so you had the peak of 6, 7, 8. 9 started trending down. 10 was trending down further. That's when you release the new system because you're already nosediving. By the time you get to 11, you're bottoming out.
Yeah.
And it took Wii, guys. Didn't it take like 2 or 3 years after Wii U came out for Wii to even hit 100 million in sales? Because it wasn't at 100 million when Wii U came out.
I mean, it's only at 101, right? So whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I mean.
Yeah, Wii U.
I'm gonna look that up actually. When did we hit 100 mil?
It's good. I mean, it's a good question, but it didn't so much past 100 million. So whatever it was, I don't know. I just wonder, like with the Wii U, like I wonder, like hypothetically, what if Wii U came out 2 years earlier? Would it have been successful?
If Wii U came out 2 years earlier?
Yeah. Like, assume the exact same line. Well, like, actually, what if Skyward Sword was basically what we have for Skyward Sword now? It's just basically this is fantasy, because it's just not going to happen. The reality situation is that Nintendo wasn't ready to transition.
Years ago, what if scenario? It was like, what if Wii HD came out in 2010 instead of Wii U in 2012? Because I think Wii U had a number of problems, not just using the Wii branding after the Wii branding was dead. I think a lot of the concepts for it, a lot of the confusing marketing, there was a lot of things about it that I don't think made sense. It still wouldn't have made sense even if it came out 2 years earlier. I think going with a more understandable progressionary name, like I know Michael Pachner's Wii HD name is not like the greatest name in the world, but it is understandable.
It would have made sense. It would have worked.
Everyone knows Wii's not in HD. By 2010, people own HD TVs. Wii HD. I need to get this thing that works with my new TV. Like, let me get this thing. And it could have just been the same power. Could have been the full backwards compatibility. I would have wished it would have been done in a better way, but still, it could have been mostly the same system. But now it has HD games, and I think it would have did all right. I don't know that it would have been like a massive seller. I think more than 13 million. I think it would have been more of a if they would have approached it instead of it being the next gen system, maybe being like the PS4 Pro, like that mid-gen refresh.
Yeah.
That we can now, okay, if we're not going to make new games, because it clearly struggled for a couple of years, they're getting new games out.
Yeah, like what if Wii HD came out 2010? Right. Yeah, what if Wii HD came out 2010, and then 3 years later they come out with a proper next generation system
Yeah, it still could have been the Switch or whatever.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, 2013 would have been a good
maybe it wouldn't have
time.
been ready in that 2013, but because I know the tech wasn't quite.
Yeah. I mean,
ready for
whatever it is that happened, I think where they're at right now is where they should be at. Perfect. So, we're good. Sometimes bad things need to happen so you can get to where you got to be. And now Nintendo's where they got to be. So, the history, whatever. Where we're at now is pretty darn good. So I'm happy with where we're at right now, which is just really good games coming out all the time, and it's kind of just hard to pick which ones we should play sometimes. But
so hard to find old.
On the note of games, though, right?
Yes.
I want to touch on a specific game that sold really well. Well, actually, there's a number of games we could talk about that sold really well. Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl. Just this last. Well, these are numbers for this past year. It looks like. What Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl sold 13.97 million. Mario Kart sold almost 8 million. Mario Party Superstar sold 5.43 million. It's just insane. Metroid Dread, though. This is what I want to show you guys. Metroid Dread.
Yes.
Metroid Dread sold an even more impressive. Hold on. This is not encompassing all the numbers here. Where is it? Here it is. This 2.74 million life to date global sales. Metroid Dread is just behind 3 million copies sold. That's impressive.
So did you dig into into the data? Because I was digging into the data, and I might be wrong on this. So because it has two different numbers, right?
Right, there was a 2.3 and the 2.74.
Yeah. And I was wondering, was the 2.3 just physical, and the 2.74 is including digital?
Well, so what's this note here? The software sales include a quantity bundled with hardware. Softwares include their downloadable versions. This title is licensed to be sold as Nintendo. Okay, so the note here is it includes the digital versions here, right, on this page.
So I think that 2.3 was sell-through of physical.
Yeah, well, let's go back to that page.
Well, that's what I presumed looking at it, but I just wanted someone else to kind of look too.
The note on the other page suggests it includes all sales. Here, Switch first-party sell-through. Sell-through October saw the highest quality sales since the launch of the Switch.
Sell-through is physical. That's a physical number when you say sell-through.
Okay.
Sell-through has nothing to do with digital because they don't ship digital copies to sell-through.
Okay.
So yeah, that 2.3 mil must be what they literal. These are how many copies we have sold to consumers. Physically. Okay.
But here, this includes digital sales, which is why everything takes a bump up. And Metroid Dread is at 2.74 million. I want to point out, maybe I should be hated or scorned for this, but I ended up buying Metroid Dread digitally because I just needed to play it immediately. I couldn't wait until the morning later.
I did that with Legends Arceus. I own a digital one. I own a physical of Metroid Dread, but I own digital of Legends Arceus. I didn't want to wait.
Actually, I committed the sin for Legends Arceus as well. I bought it digitally. I've been sinning like crazy.
I've been so convenient. Whatever.
The problem is I've been doing it for a lot of my games just because, oh man, it's midnight. I could play it right now, or I could wait.
I'm kind of 50-50. I'm kind of 50-50. Like, sometimes I go digital, sometimes I go... Well, what it was I planned out a Legends Arceus stream at 8 in the morning on launch day.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So I dropped off... my kids just got on the bus at 7:10. I could run to GameStop. Oh, won't be open. Okay, well, I could run to Walmart and pick up a physical copy quick. But then I'd be pushing it, and I want to play now. So, or I could just buy this while my kids are waiting to get on the bus. They get on the bus, and I can just play it right away.
Yeah.
It was like I wanted to save that 40 minutes of when I could be playing it and just say play it. So, it's all convenience. And maybe I end up regretting it in 10 years and my Switch breaks and I can't download it anymore.
If having it as a collector's item is that important, I could just get another one.
I'm hoping the next system's backwards compatible and that includes the eShop, so I can still download my digital copies. But that's asking Nintendo to really be forward thinking, and I don't really trust that.
I don't know. That's gonna take time.
But whatever, I'll enjoy it while I have it. And one thing that also, guys, makes me okay buying digitally is twofold. One, every time I've gotten into a financial issue over the last handful of years, which I don't think I'm going to get into it anymore. I'm in a much better place. But when I have, my physical Switch games were the first thing I sold.
Yeah.
So then, like, I've rebought Breath of the Wild probably like 6 times. Like, it's just dumb. Now I own it digitally. Now I got to worry about that. But besides that, that's just, by the way, that's just stupid life decisions.
I mean, the argument go both ways though, right? You were able to sell a game to get value back for it, versus when you have it digitally, that's it. Like, there's no getting any money back for it.
I'm not someone that really replays games a lot, so like once I've had my fill of Legends Arceus, I'm probably never gonna play it again. So then, do I really care that I only own it digital and can't play it in 10 years? When I probably don't have a desire to play it again, because that's the way I am. I grew up in the NES, Game Boy era, and I have barely any desire to even touch those games anymore. So I'm also just different, I guess. I'm always looking forward to what's next. So if I've already enjoyed what's here, I'm ready to move on to the next thing. Like Breath of the Wild, love that game. Could play it anytime. Also, I haven't had a real desire to play Breath of the Wild in probably 6 months because I've had my fill. I'm good. I'm ready for the next one. So that's just how I
mean, I think it's whatever you want to do. That's what you're allowed to do.
Yeah.
But
everyone's different.
Yeah.
You know.
Like you though, for me, oftentimes it's a time thing, right? Like, for example, Legends Arceus. I wanted to make content on the game, right? I want to make videos on the game, but I have to work, right? I work 65 hours a week currently. It's not a long-term thing; it's a temporary thing. But there's that, and then I'm still trying to run the channel, and I still want to play the game, and all of those take time, right? So going and not being able to leave during work hours makes it even harder to go and acquire the game physically. So really, my most reasonable option that's also effective with my time is to get the game digitally. So like, sometimes it's saving that 40 minutes or saving that hour that it would cost me to do that is worth it. Or sometimes I'm not even available to get it during the day because of work hours, right? So it's just kind of like, just gonna do it. Not also, it's convenient to have things digitally because it's all in one place. You don't have to go get one of your 3 or 4 different cases filled with different kinds of cartridges and plop it in there. So for me, it's just more convenient. Although at the same time, I do love certain games and I would like to have them as a collector's thing. But in reality, how much do I really need that? It comes down to the person, I guess.
There was a point early in the Switch life when I had a bunch of physical games that it was like a point of pride that I could turn around and, hey, look at all those games on my shelf. That's cool. And then it started hitting me, the first time I went to sell them. When's the last time I played any of these games? It's nothing wrong, by the way. A lot of people I know like replaying games. Eric likes replaying games from my podcast. A lot of people like going back and replaying games. It's just not for me. If I've already had the experience, I'm ready for a new one.
It depends on the game.
And like, I'm that way in general. I don't rewatch a lot of shows. I don't rewatch a lot of movies either once I've seen them. There is a rare occasion, like when a movie just came out, that maybe I'll watch it a couple times. But I mean, it's just like Breath of the Wild. I played through it a few times when it first came out. That's the initial excitement, wanting to catch every detail. And then after that, I'm good. Like, when's the last time I watched the first Iron Man movie? I don't know. 15 years ago.
I played through Metroid Dread twice. I beat it in normal mode, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna, and 100% in normal. I was all right, I'm gonna do it in hard, and I beat it through hard. And then after that, I was like, maybe I'll do speed, try to beat it more quickly. But I moved on to other things.
Yeah, and none of this, guys, is me like knocking these entertainment mediums. This is just how I consume things. I'm someone that I'm the reason new games come out all the time. Like, they don't literally do it for me, but that's the kind of consumer I am. I always need something new, and so I'm really excited by new. So it really just makes me, I don't know. Maybe it's why this could be. I've had a theory about this, the way that I play games, because once I've had my fill, I'm done and I move on. Maybe that's why I enjoy such a wide breadth of games across many different genres and also across many different systems, because I don't like grab onto like Mario Odyssey and that's my game I'm playing for 4 months. Like, no, I'll probably get a week or two and I'm good. And then I can move on to something else. Like multiplayer games are obviously the exception because, getting your fill on those might take a little longer because it's based on rankings and everything else. But even then, I don't stick around. Like Splatoon 2, I think there was about a year and a half, 2 years where I really played some Splatoon 2 multiplayer, and then that was it. Same for Mario Kart 8. To be fair, I had my fill of Mario Kart 8 before it even came to Switch, but that's neither here nor there. I know a lot of people didn't own Wii U, so that, you know, it's fine for the other, you know, 30 million people to really enjoy that game. Or 35 million, I don't even know. That game has sold so much. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm cool. What do we got next on the slate?
We got a lot. I do want to talk about a little bit about Metroid Dread doing well though, right?
Do that. You weren't gonna let it move on. Like, no, Metroid Dread, we gotta go.
We gotta talk about it. We gotta talk about
how RGT is gonna have to play Bottle in Wonderland before the end of the year.
Probably, yeah. He's got to do that.
Yeah, I think his bet was it won't sell more than 3 million. Well, about that.
I think in general, it's better. It's proven that if there's like something a Switch game may not do, you should probably just start betting for it rather than against it. Yeah. Like, it's kind of like, for example, Legends Arceus. Oh, will Legends Arceus be one of the best-selling Pokemon games yet? As opposed to siding with airing with the side of doubt, it should be the other way around. Like, it's kind of like, I think that's what we should start, just giving every Switch game the benefit of the doubt, because every time we're seeing them kind of be on the other side of success. So the good side of success.
I mean, Legends Arceus, second fastest selling Switch game of all time at the moment. That really puts it on a pretty interesting pace that only one other game could even be mentioned in. So let's just wait and see.
Right. But with Metroid Dread specifically, a game that hasn't sold nearly as much, but still I think is very good, is
Metroid. This is huge numbers. Huge. Probably the best selling Metroid of all time. By today.
It's as of December 31st, it was like 100,000 copies away. So
it's probably already there.
Yeah, I could probably get Metroid Dread over the hump with a lemonade stand. That's a joke, but you know, it's close. But this puts it in the realm, assuming it caps off and it only hits about 3 million. Even if it doesn't sell a single other copy, Metroid Dread has already put itself in the category of Xenoblade Chronicles and Fire Emblem. And why do I bring that up? Xenoblade Chronicles and Fire Emblem are what I would consider core-centric Nintendo games that I love, and I think a lot of you guys in the chat also love, that we see with some regularity. These games are games that are constantly in development, sometimes more than one of them are in constant development. And the argument for Metroid over the years, during the Wii era specifically, was that because Metroid hasn't sold well, Nintendo isn't going to produce them the same way they would, say, for example, Xenoblade and Fire Emblem. But Dread is now selling in that tier. At least. It's at least in the 2 to 3 million tier, which is like Fire Emblem and Xenoblade. In other words, Metroid Dread has already sold enough to suggest to Nintendo they should make another one. That's where it's at. We're not in a situation where, oh man, Metroid Dread didn't sell enough, we're not going to see another one for years. No. It's already in Xenoblade Fire Emblem range, which we see one of those like every year or two. So, I'm not saying they come out every year or two, but we hear about them pretty frequently. Like, you're going to see a couple mentioned per generation. So Dread has put itself in that category, and this is just the first few months. It could exceed that. We had this discussion of at least a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago. Will Metroid Dread prove to be an evergreen title? We don't know, right? But at the very least, it's proven itself to be worthy of having a sequel in the not so distant future.
Oh yeah. That's
good enough.
I mean, I know this is kind of an unfair comparison because these kind of games don't sell as well, but like ARMS, they outsold ARMS, and that was a really good sales for a fighting game. Well, this is really good sales for the genre this game is in, and didn't cost a boatload to make, and they hired Mercury Steam. Why not just have them make another? I understand that this chapter is closed. There's a unique nature around this being like the end of the current Metroid mainline story, at least from the original games. Obviously, building on top of a game that was supposed to come out but never actually got completed and came out, the whole Dread concept. And that's cool, but I do think that, literally upon launch sales, I'm sure they, if not already beforehand, expecting success, Nintendo was probably already negotiating with Mercury Steam to start making that next one, because I do think internal development of Metroid is still going to probably just stick with Metroid Prime 4 and whenever that comes out. And obviously, this makes people wonder, well, if Metroid Prime 4 can actually come out while Switch is still killing it, what kind of numbers can Metroid Prime 4 do if this one did 2.74?
Yeah, in less than 3 months.
Like,
I'm just looking at list of like sales for different like Switch games, right? Metroid Dread is already it's currently the 32nd ranked best-selling Switch game. It's already outsold new Pokemon Snap, Donkey Kong Tropical Freeze, ARMS, Mario Rabbids Kingdom. Well, is that true?
No, that's Nintendo published. So Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle's cumulative sales are over 8 million.
Yeah, that's misleading.
But there's certain regions Nintendo published the game, so that's what you see on the.
Okay. Yeah.
I have Wikipedia or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
They count only the published data for one company. It's dumb.
Yeah.
Anyways, go on.
That is dumb. That's why you can't source Wikipedia.
Yeah. That's a prime example why Wikipedia is not a factual source. It's taking like one little quote from a news article somewhere, and that's
right. What you can do is you can take a look at what the source is, because they do cite usually, and you can look that up and see where that's at. Point is, Metroid Dread is performing pretty good, and I think it's a good start. It's a good start. I mean, we have the rumors for Metroid Prime Remake later this year. I think that potentially could even outsell Metroid Dread, and that could lead into Metroid Prime 4 perhaps a year or two down the road after that, and that'll sell even better. So I think Metroid's...
Here you go. Here's one reason. Just to prove those numbers are wrong. This isn't as high as I think the numbers currently are, but this was back in June 13th of 2021. The creative director at Ubisoft Milan tweeted out that Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle has passed 7.5 million sales. So again, this is why Wikipedia is not always trustworthy. And is this person trustworthy? Literally worked on the game and works at Ubisoft. And he's allowed to announce these figures. He would have lost his job if this wasn't real. So,
yeah, it can be misleading. But anyway, it's just good. It's just good for Dread to be getting these numbers, because it means that the series is healthy, and we're probably going to see more in the future.
Just compared to other Metroid games, second best selling already. Hasn't even been on the market a year. Likely, easily, probably going to be the best selling. And this was a game that probably didn't have a ton of dev time, a ton of money put into it. It is very well polished, and probably been worked on since Samus Returns came out, if I had to guess.
Yeah.
So why not do it again?
I think they're gonna. I think it's a no-brainer.
There's a demand for this kind of game. The reception was amazing. It was up for Game of the Year. A Metroid game, a 2D side-scrolling Metroid game was I guess I'm not gonna call it quite 2D, but a side-scrolling Metroid game was up for Game of the Year. I understand it was kind of a weak year. I don't care. A side-scrolling Metroidvania game, literally Metroid, was up for a game. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That's how well received it was. They're doing it again. Now, I might not see it until the next system comes out. I don't know. But either way, they're going to do this again. I'm very curious, because obviously we have to know what's the next chapter of the side-scrolling game, since this closed out the current chapter. There's that too. They kind of get a reset button here to kind of do whatever they sort of want. So, be interesting.
For sure. So I have a super chat here from Taker610. Thank you very much, Taker. Taker says, "What's the biggest factor in Switch's success? Assuming we all think it's a combination of the two: the hybrid hardware or the killer software." This is kind of a cop-out answer, but I think those things kind of go hand in hand. I think because it's a hybrid hardware where Nintendo's no longer divvying up their development efforts between two different platforms, because their development efforts are now focused on one platform, we are seeing more consistent releases from first-party Nintendo. So the momentum is continually churning. The conversation is continually on Nintendo. We're always seeing another game every month or two. People are blowing it up on social media. It's really awesome. It's really great. And that word of mouth is also more powerful now because of social media. If you go back, Nintendo used to love the idea of word of mouth as their primary source of marketing, which is basically, we don't want to spend money on marketing, so we're going to rely on our fans to talk about our games, right? But back during the early 2000s and 90s, not everyone had Twitter or Twitch or YouTube, but now we do, and now we all are basically marketing Nintendo for them because we just love their games. But when you factor that on top of a game coming out with so frequently because they're focused on one platform, that conversation continues, and people see that conversation. They're like, huh, check out that game. Okay, I'm going to buy that game. They're going to talk about that game. And it compounds. It's a compounding effect. So they both work together right now. So which it's kind of like, if you want me to say which one's more important, it's like the chicken or the egg. Like, they're both important because you kind of need both for it to be the case. Because say, for example, it wasn't hybrid hardware, you might as well just have the amount of Switch games there are. And at which point will the Switch be as successful? No, it won't. So maybe you could argue the hybrid hardware is the bigger factor, because the hybrid hardware leads to more software. What say you, Nate?
Oh, I'm good. I'm just really excited for the future of Metroid. Like, it's been a long time since we've been able to say we're excited for the future of Metroid. Like, not just Prime 4 and whenever the hell that comes out, because talk about the development, hell it's in or not in, I have no idea. Will it come out this generation? Will it not? I don't know. All I know is when it does come out, it's probably going to be a banger. And I can't wait for that. And then obviously, side-scrolling Metroid should have a bright future. I mean, whether Mercury Steam makes the game or not, because someone mentioned, brought up some of the abuse that happened during development, which was an internal issue at Mercury Steam. I remember we reported on it, at least at my channel, about that. It is unfortunate. We hear stories like that across the industry. This happens especially in the West. It really happens a lot in Western development. A lot of abuse of employees. And I mean, you think it's bad there, just go read about the development of Cyberpunk. It was horrible. So this is one of those situations where I don't think that's going to affect Nintendo reaching out to Mercury Steam and making another Metroid game. I think that's just, unfortunately, at this point, a side effect of the industry. And I hope the people that can't work in that environment get out.
Yeah.
Apparently, all that information, and this is to be devil's advocate on that side of the story, on the horrible work conditions, it all came from 2 former disgruntled employees that gave us all that info. So it's also possible that it really wasn't that bad. These employees are just already mad at the company for something else. So This is always like he said, she said situation.
And I don't remember, right, but don't they know going in if they're going to be featured in the credits based on the amount of time they put into the game? Like, that's all on contract, right?
Yeah, that was like one of the big contracts. Oh, we weren't in the credits and we only worked on it. I'm like, but should that have been already stated in your contract? Like, should that have been something if you cared about? No, I do agree. I think anyone who works on a game should be in the credits, period. I think that's right.
But the thing is, if they agreed to it, not saying it makes it like super okay, but they agreed to it.
Like, if it wasn't in your contract that you would be put in the credits, then aren't you could argue being a little bitter.
Yeah.
Because you could have negotiated that into your contract, and I doubt they would have held it against you as a no, we don't want to hire you if you want to be in the credits.
Well, I don't know. Maybe
someone didn't get hired because they made that demand.
Yeah.
But that's not what they're saying. They're saying we worked on this game and we weren't in the credits. Okay, well, but did it say in your contract you were supposed to be in the credits? Now, we don't know that.
Yeah.
If I'm the company making the game, I put everyone who worked.
Like, like how hard is it just to add a few more lines? Yeah. Like, credits are already too longer than they should.
From the perspective, I go, look, if it wasn't in your contract and they fulfilled your contract, that's all they were legally obligated to do, was fulfill the terms of your contract. So if they did that,
so it's not legally wrong, but maybe is it ethically wrong?
Oh, we had crunch. Okay, crunch is already an extremely controversial thing, and that's a whole big debate on its own, because in the rest of the world, we don't call it crunch, we call it overtime. And all of us you were just saying 65 hours a week. That's not the normal 40-hour work week.
Mm-mm.
We all work insane hours sometimes. I've pushed 120-hour weeks at a former job. We all do crazy things. And it's well known in the video game industry that crunch is pretty much prevalent everywhere. So, I don't know. It sucks. I want it to be better. Just like I want to never work overtime again and make more money. That's not the way the world works. So.
Yeah.
Like YouTube, guys. You think YouTube's easy? Ah, damn. You want to be super successful, like really, really successful, man. Oh my God. You know the amount of hours you got to put in on YouTube for very little payback? It's insane. So.
Sometimes, yeah, I don't even want to get into the numbers. We do this because we like it, not because we want money. Just for the you don't do YouTube for money, but it's
the money's cool. But like people think the money is like.
No, it's not. Great. It's not. It's the opposite.
Maybe it will be for me someday, but I am not there.
No, most people don't make a lot on YouTube. No, it's the numbers don't
justify the hours.
No, it's like sometimes people think, oh man, that's 10,000 views. That's gotta be maybe it could buy you lunch. Like
it's like 10,000 views. I'm like, yeah, okay, so I might have made $15. Cool.
Yeah.
It's like when I did my little video on Nintendo buys Capcom, my little joke skit thing I did. People were like, "Oh, this was just so cheap to get clicks in." I'm like, "Okay, I made $3 on the video. I literally, I'm not the size of channel where doing something like that's going to make me any money that matters." So
yeah,
that's never money is never the motivating factor behind any content I make. It's just not. The money's inconsequential in terms of what it takes to make that content versus what you get paid out. Because guys, that little Capcom skit and stuff, that video I did, for those who don't know, it's just like any video. It took me 4 hours to make and I made $3. Do the math on how much money per hour that is. Was it really worth anything? Was not. Just YouTube, you do it because you love it. You don't do it because you're trying to get rich. So
you're right. So
very few of us make it. Very few of us can be beat 'em ups, you know.
So let's transition.
Sure.
Is there anything in relation to sales you want to touch on? Do you feel like we've touched on the bigger points?
Yeah, I think we've touched on most of it. I mean, all the sales figures are pretty much exactly where I kind of figured they would be. You know, obviously you Switch at 103 million now for Nintendo, only trailing Game Boy and DS. Should probably pass Game Boy at some point next fiscal year.
DS is going to be close.
Yeah, it's going to get close. I mean, it's going to get close to DS and PS2 to be the best ever. So it's going to be very interesting to see if it can get. And again, that also depends. Can they sell 15 to 20 million a year for the next 2 to 3 years?
But you want to know what's fascinating about the DS? The DS sold over 150 million, but Nintendo was also pushing another platform at the time, and that was the GameCube. That sold about 20 million, maybe 21, around there. And also there was a bit of a transition between Game Boy Advance to DS. So Game Boy Advance is selling a bit as well during that period in time. Yet the DS still did what it did. Meanwhile, the Switch, for most of its life, well, I mean, actually the 3DS was relevant for until 2019. So, you know, I shouldn't, take away from...
Officially went out of production.
Yeah. So, there was a little bit of a bleed in there as well. But point is, I feel like the DS situation is arguably the most impressive because not only did they sell 150 million, but they also had a GameCube that sold 20 million, which wasn't impressive by itself, but it's, Nintendo sold over 170 million pieces of hardware during that era. So, pretty good, right? I don't know. It's actually, there's also there's a transition because you had Game Boy Advance and GameCube, but then DS came out during GameCube, but then Wii came out and DS was relevant at the same time. So there's a lot of bleed in there, but
there's like a 6-year period where there's 5 systems jumbled together.
Yeah.
That was a weird time for Nintendo.
Yeah. Point is though, it's going to be interesting to see if the Switch can get to DS numbers, and I feel like it can, because I mean, let's say they dip again, but they only dip what? 5-10%, and then next year they only dip 15-20, so they're still selling 16 17 million per year, right? They're only gonna be a few million away from doing it. So if they go for a third year and they sell 10 million that third year, they'll be there. So if the Switch still continues to sell pretty well for 3 more years, I think it's gonna pass the DS. Now the question is, will it sell pretty well for 3 more years? That's tough. I think a lot of it comes down to when we see next generation system. I feel like that system could come as soon as next year, but by next year I mean holiday 2023, right? But also maybe they push it until 2024, right? And I think it doesn't matter because the next generation system will also impact sales for the base Switch, right? But even when that system comes out, as we alluded to earlier, there's going to be a transition period. It's not just going to be like, hey, Switch is done. No, it's going to still sell for a couple more years, but it's going to sell at a diminished rate. So, you know, if Nintendo can push Switch for throughout 2022 and most of 2023 and sell close to where it's at right now with just minor dips, and then for 2 more years after that, sell pretty well but at a diminished rate, I think it does pass DS lifetime. But it'll be close.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of unknowns. There's also the, not to bring this back around, but what if it's a mid-gen refresh, because we're still in the middle of the cycle apparently.
Middle.
But who knows at this point what the hell Nintendo's doing. I mean, the bottom line is they can't make enough Switches to meet demand right now, and I think once they're finally back to meeting demand, that's when we got to start thinking about, okay, so what do we do now?
Yeah.
You know? And that might not happen until 2023 at this point when the new factories open up. So.
Yeah, it's tough to say. But let's get into some direct rumor discussion, because there's a few different things circulating. I know you've talked about a few of it, right? First off, let me just say, most of us believe a direct is happening in February. Like, is it possible it doesn't? Absolutely.
7 of the last 10 years.
There's a pretty good chance. Pretty good chance.
And one of those years that there wasn't was COVID, and we didn't have directs. So
maybe you could argue 7 out of 11.
7 of the last 9 years.
Yeah.
That's pretty good odds.
Yeah.
Plus, they have a lot of big games to talk about. So
I'll also argue
that's what we know about. They have a lot to talk about. So,
for sure. I'll also say that normally, if we don't get a direct in February, it's because we had something in January, like a direct mini.
And we didn't.
Right. So during the Switch era, so you look at every year of the Switch era, right? So 2017, well, granted, the Switch wasn't even out yet, but there was a major January presentation. The Switch and Zelda come out in March, right? 2018, there was a direct mini in January, so we waited till March. 2019, February direct. 2020, COVID, throw out the window. 2021, there was nothing in January, we had a direct in February. So, like, you know, we haven't had a situation where we skip both January and February without any sort of direct. So I would argue that it would be a little unprecedented if we get into March with nothing. So I think, given there was nothing in January, something's happening this month.
Yeah, plus we don't know technically any official release dates past March.
No, Nintendo, they can theoretically.
Reboot Camp date leaked as April 8th, but technically hasn't been announced.
Not officially, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an estimated release for Advance Wars.
eShop listing.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's probably real, and it was taken down after it got in the system. That's fine.
If you go to the eShop right now, last I checked, Advance Wars has an estimated release date for April 8th, but it's estimated. It might come out like late April. We don't really know. Yeah.
Like, literally, like, we need a direct because we need to know what the hell is coming after March. It doesn't.
They also need to market Advance
Wars. At the end of
Wars.
March and not know what's coming. Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Now, what gets interesting is, like, how much of a window does Nintendo like to have between a release date and us knowing that, right? Like, what is that window? You know, we go back to 2020, which was, again, a really weird year. Really weird year. We didn't. 3D All-Stars was sworn by so many people to be real on the inside, but we're in September and we're like, hey, well, there's no Nintendo's announced squat yet.
Supposedly it was supposed to be like their big E3.
Right, but they delayed it.
Didn't have E3.
Yeah, I don't feel like 3D All-Stars warrants a big E3 reveal in hindsight, but anyway, point is, they announced that game 2 weeks before it came out.
In hindsight, you can argue that, but I mean, it's undeniable. Then it was a big hype driver.
Right, I mean, back for the year, I love it. I mean, I'm glad it exists. I'm glad I have it. Yeah, for sure. But point is, that game was announced 2 weeks before it came out. That's never happened before, right? So I feel like that's definitely an aberration. That's not the norm. I feel like we gotta look. It's probably more fair to think maybe at least 2 months. Because look at, for example, Kirby and the Forgotten Land. We got the confirmation of the release date 9 weeks before its release. So I think maybe, you know, if we don't know about things in April and there are things coming out in April, we probably should find out in February. I feel like that's fair. That's a reasonable expectation. So, you and I seem to agree. February Direct seems likely. Could Nintendo get away with a March Direct? Yes, but probably February. So, there are some rumors. A few different things coming from different places. You know, a lot of people are simply talking about Directs right now. A lot of people kind of believe it. Let's see. I had a few things up here.
We're in Direct rumor season because this is the most likely time that we're going to get our first one of the year. So there's lots of rumors flying around. Oh, it's going to be Mario Kart. It's going to be this.
Hey, is there a way to raise the volume on your mic a little bit because you're a little quiet?
Yes. Sorry, I actually forgot that I fixed it. I lowered your volume on my side and then never put my mic up.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, let's see here.
Yeah, there's highly likely going to be a Direct this month. Heck, could be this week. Traditionally, it's either this week or next week. If you look at the dates of prior February Directs, it's pretty much either this week or next week. So, yeah, there's so many like rumors flying around from different people. My base expectation, and this is just, hey, I like to hype responsibly, and let's just be reasonable here. Release dates of currently known games through summer. I expect that.
So, there's a few rumors coming from a few different places. Marco Maro, Samus Hunter, I think you mentioned Zippo as well, put out a blog post. There's a few different things that have been discussed and mentioned. Other places, well, like I think Nate the Hate brought up in a podcast about there being, like, for example, a casual party game that's supposed to come out at some point this year. And now they're
claiming it's a sequel to 1-2 Switch, apparently.
Or at least a spiritual successor, right? Something in that vein. Could be a direct sequel. But something like a 1-2 Switch. I may not buy it. I don't know. We'll see. Right? It kind of depends on what they do with it. But that is something that potentially could be announced in a direct. I mean, I actually would expect something like that to be announced in a February Direct. Like that seems like a pretty decent bet. And that's kind of one of the rumors that have been circulating lately. I think for sure that could be the case. Another one, there was I forget the name, Mitsuda, I forget his full name, but was talking about a potential announcement happening sometime in February, and he's a Xenoblade composer. What's he been working on? Hopefully he's been composing Xenoblade music, and he's alluding to Xenoblade 3 or something from Monolith Soft getting announced this month, most likely in a Nintendo Direct. Yeah. And this sides up with a whole bunch of rumors of Xenoblade Chronicles 3 from a lot of different like industry insiders and journalists. So like it's kind of like,
Plus they've been working on a new IP for a while too.
Right. So, I wonder if that's taken a backseat to Xenoblade 3. If it's not Xenoblade 3, it's the new IP, right? Like you gotta think one or the other.
Something.
Right. And now could be a good time. They could wait, but based off the things we're hearing, it does seem like a decent bet to think maybe Xenoblade Chronicles 3, right? Now, another game that people have been bringing up that could get announced during this Direct is a Fire Emblem game.
It makes sense. Three Houses was, 2019?
Right. It's 2022. It's about time.
Once Awakening came out on 3DS, they started rapid-firing games out, so...
Yeah. I'm actually surprised we haven't seen another Fire Emblem announced already. Something.
I think maybe COVID delays. Maybe that's the reason.
It has to be. Yeah. Has to be.
But I mean, clearly there's something Fire Emblem in the works. Three Houses sold incredible. So for a Fire Emblem game, it sold amazing. So
like it just doesn't make sense for there to be less Fire Emblem, right? Like there was like 3 iterations of Fire Emblem on 3DS, right? Fire Emblem Three Houses is like what the second or it's like one. If it's not the first best selling, it's like the second or third best selling Fire Emblem game, right? Like so they should absolutely follow it up with more. And the fact we have only seen one so far, we're this late to Switch's life cycle, I have to think that there are multiple Fire Emblem games in the works, but the problem has simply been COVID has pushed things up, which is why we haven't seen one announced yet. Like if you assume COVID pushed everything up a year.
Three Houses is as of November 6th of 2020, Fire Emblem Three Houses has become the best-selling Fire Emblem game of all time.
Well, there you go. They absolutely should have more than one Fire Emblem game on Switch. Like, they got to. And I think what is kind of reasonable And I mean, this is, I mean, I'm putting numbers here. Maybe I shouldn't assign numbers, but I'm gonna do it anyway. COVID, it seems like delayed things at least a year. For a lot of projects were delayed at least a year. It would have made sense for them to follow up Three Houses 2 years later with a remake in 2021. COVID pushes things up a year. If we see it in 2022, that makes sense. That explains why we haven't seen more Fire Emblem. Like, because they had so much Fire Emblem in 3DS. You would think they would have more in the Switch era. So right now, it's looking like we're only going to get 2 Fire Emblems in this generation. But we'll see. They might come up with another Fire Emblem the year afterwards, right? Like, and then there you go. Or they just make it a cross-platform release 2 years from now.
Just like we're overdue for a new 3D Mario game, and might not be this year.
I don't think it will be. Yeah,
which is fine. You games for next year too. So.
Yeah, you need it for next year, absolutely. You know, but that's kind of the thing, right? So like we're seeing for example, what's his face? Zippo is saying that Xenoblade Chronicles 3, this 1-2 Switch sequel, and Fire Emblem are all expected to be at the Direct, or like likely to be at the Direct, I should say. Maybe likely and expected have slightly different connotations, but yes. I think you used likely, so I don't want to put words in his mouth. Good chance. Let's say there's a good chance, according to Zippo, right? And again, I don't take everything what Zippo says as gospel. I don't take any. There's no rumor I take as gospel. There's literally nothing. Heck, you can't even take Nintendo's word as gospel, right? Because no one, like, it seems like more than half the people who
we're not making a new system. Week later, here's our new system.
Or on the flip side, Breath of the Wild 2, people don't believe it's coming out 2022, even though Nintendo has told us multiple times it's coming out 2022. And then people refuse to believe Nintendo.
Multiple times it was covered in 2015, Breath of the Wild.
Right.
27.
So who do you believe? You don't believe anything. There's no one.
Basically, it's
not even the source is trustworthy.
Should we still expect Breath of the Wild 2 this year? Well, latest financial update still has it listed for 2022. Okay, yeah, but that doesn't mean anything. We can get the summer, and here's a little Twitter video with AJ Nolan saying, sorry, we need more time to develop this game.
Yeah.
It will not be releasing this
Although,
year. Okay.
I'll argue that I don't think they would wait that long to say that.
They did not wait very long to announce Breath of the Wild's delay into 20 or into.
They waited until March.
Yeah. So I think if we get past March and it hasn't been announced that it's been delayed, it's coming this year. This assumes, by the way, we don't see it this month. We could literally see it at this Direct, depending on when it's coming out. So
yeah,
they did about a 9-month hype cycle for Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
So I could see where they're like, hey, even if it is holiday, we'll announce it's coming out holiday now and start hyping it. You know, we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, but I guess one other thing to consider, to be fair on both sides, is that video. Typically, those videos announce a longer than, like, it's not just like a 3-month delay, right? It's like hey, this is gonna take like another year or so, right? Like,
yeah.
So, they may not even do a video, because if they do have to delay it, they're just delaying it till like March, right? They're not delaying it like until
it
next
could be one
Christmas.
of those that like they don't say anything, but then they drop a trailer and all of a sudden it says 2023 instead of 2022, and you're
but they'll say March 2023, so they're like, oh, okay, like.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We hope it says March 20. If it just says 2023, I'll be like, oh no.
Yeah.
Hey, we got a trailer, so it's still doing right?
Yeah, but
Zelda Zelda home console games have traditionally dealt with lots of delays. So.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure you know my opinion on this, though. Like, I just think it's really unlikely. Like, yes, they put it up in their financials multiple times since 2022, but also, like, they created a whole commercial at the Game Awards talking about their 2022 lineup. They had Breath of the Wild 2. They had Breath of the Wild 2 in their Switch OLED trailer. They have Breath of the Wild 2 in other social media posts for the 2022.
Breath of the Wild, the original Breath of the Wild, was at the Game Awards 2014, still saying 2015, and they delayed it 3 months later. So I want to be clear, it being in the Game Awards, I don't mean anything, at least based on the last game.
It's just that the marketing has been for 2022. So
they've consistently marketed it. They showed it again after not seeing it since it was revealed. The sequel, okay, it's been a couple years.
Yeah.
Oh, now we see it again. Okay,
I think the fact that
last time they did that was.
I think the reason they showed it us to again the second time is because they already had a good idea of when it was coming out. I don't think they would have given us a release year otherwise.
The trailer they showed also looked like
the
really close to gameplay complete. Like, it looked like we know what we're doing.
Yeah, like they've made the mistake in the past to reveal a Zelda game and give us a release year. This time they waited 2 years before they did that. So I think that Nintendo was just really careful this time, and they didn't tell us a date until they knew they were ready, because they know there's a history and they didn't want to screw up again.
Just to be on the other side of the coin where he goes, oh, it might not be this year. Eiji Aonuma, I think, said targeting 2022.
Targeting game. There was, and I will concede that there was definitely an air of doubt about that. But
yeah, it was just so you know, to me it was like we know that we say dates and we never hit it, so we're just not going to outright say it's for sure next year.
Yeah,
we're not going to be that bold, but we will say we expect, we target, we hope.
Yeah,
we'll see. I don't think there's been any delays since then, so I think things are going fine. Obviously, the game looked phenomenal last time. Definitely looked more gameplay and feature complete than we saw in the prior trailer, which was clearly like just a cutscene. So,
I mean,
we'll see.
The only thing I would have to think, because I mean, the game's been in development since 2017, and they already had Breath of the Wild as a foundation. Like, we're talking about a 5-year development cycle if it comes out for holiday.
Yeah.
For a game that already had a base. Typically, when the game already has a foundation, that expedites development by a year or two. So, like,
yeah. And Nintendo,
what's going
by the
on?
way, likes having Zelda games out every year. Something Zelda.
Right. So. And that actually brings up another point, right? I think Zippo and other people have alluded to it. Wind Waker HD, actually, in fact, even Nate the Hate, I think, talked about in his podcast. Like
Jeff Grubb mentioned, too, that he thought they'd be packaged together, if that's what you're about to refer.
Well, that and just the fact that they're supposed to come out this year.
Yeah. And some people say, Jeff Grubb said last year. Yeah, he did. Things happen.
There's a few people that said that they were convinced it was coming out last year.
Is there anybody out there that realistically thinks we're not going to get the Wind Waker and Twilight Princess HD ported over? Like, they're Wii U games.
I could see it.
And they're Zelda. And they would sell incredibly well. Why wouldn't you bring them over?
What I've always said, and I'll stick to it, is that Nintendo could release them in the same year as, say, Breath of the Wild 2. But really what I think is that they're just going to kind of save them for... Like, if they
don't have a game?
When they don't have a game, right? Like...
Yeah.
So
Zelda every year.
Right, so I'll say that if let's say we get a February Direct and they announce Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD and they don't reiterate Breath of the Wild 2's release date, then I'm worried.
Yeah, because I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild 2017, they did Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition port.
2018. 2019 was
Link's Awakening. 2020 was
Age of Calamity.
2021 was obviously Skyward Sword HD.
I do want to go back to 2020 though, because for most of that year. And this is for me, I consider this a massive W, right? Because I argued with so many people about this throughout the entire year. I kept telling people there's going to be a big holiday game. There's going to be a big holiday game. Nintendo always comes up with something Zelda every single year. It's going to be something Zelda. And they were like, look, the Zelda game is that DLC for Cadence of Hyrule. And I was like, no, there's no way DLC for an indie game that's just getting a physical release that came out the year before counts.
I think you mentioned Cadence of Hyrule. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's like it's not even. People were thinking that was a Zelda release for the year. No, it had to be a little bit more significant than DLC for an indie game.
Because the Warrior games are a crossover too. So.
Well, what I'm arguing is scope matters, right?
Yeah. Because Cadence of Hyrule was never going to be like a huge seller.
But the other thing is that Cadence of Hyrule, we're not even talking about Cadence of Hyrule. We were talking about DLC for Cadence of Hyrule. People were arguing that DLC for Cadence of Hyrule was a Zelda release for the year. No, we got the best Warriors game, best-selling Warriors game of all time.
Best-selling.
And also arguably one of the coolest spin-offs we've ever seen. So, yeah. Just want to put that out there. And I was arguing that all year. I'm not saying I knew it was going to be Age of Calamity. I just knew there was going to be something Zelda and there was going to be some big holiday game. And it turned out to be Age of Calamity. So, point is there's been something major.
Princess, whatever. Could have been whatever.
Yeah, it could have been that maybe, right? Although I'd argue, well, actually, no. Because
it's hard for me to argue those as a holiday, as the big holiday game.
Right.
Those feel, again, those always feel like summer.
So let me go to that, right? So like it could have been that, but it wouldn't have been the holiday game.
Together.
Right. They could have served as a Zelda release for the year, but it would also mean the Zelda release wouldn't be the holiday release for the year. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like they would have something else for the holiday, but it could have been the Zelda release, right?
Bowser's Fury early.
Right. Like for example, Skyward Sword HD could not be the holiday release, the big holiday release for 2021, but it could be the Zelda release, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So basically, I think remasters
Something this year.
Remasters
right now,
can't be.
Nintendo has told us it's Breath of the Wild 2.
I'm hoping, yeah. Now
It's on the schedule.
the question is, do we get TPHD and Wind Waker HD for the first half, and Breath of the Wild 2 for the second half?
I think it all depends on what else is coming this year, because like they already have so many games. Like we need to know when Bayonetta 3 is coming out still. Obviously, Splatoon 3.
And if the rumors are true, Xenoblade 3 and Fire Emblem. Like, where does Xenoblade 3 and Fire Emblem fit? If they're both in the direct.
Is still slated for this year. When's that going to drop?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot we already know, and this is before they've even announced anything new for the year.
Right. Like maybe Xenoblade 3 and Fire Emblem. If there's a Pokemon game for the holiday, which I don't believe.
Pokemon game or spin-off Pokemon game or something coming.
There's got to be something spin-off, for sure. Right.
There's already so it's hard for me to imagine how let's say Xenoblade and Fire Emblem happens. It's so hard for me to imagine there's any other massive announcements, and yet there could be.
I kind of have a hard time believing both Xenoblade and Fire Emblem come out this year. Even if they both get announced in the direct, I don't think both come out this year. They could. Yeah, I mean, they could. Yeah.
Like I think one of them makes sense for like the October slate. They always seem to have something big in October for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Every October they just want to drop you something that matters.
But they can't be the game, right? Like there's going to be at least
what
one
if
or
Luigi's Mansion 4 gets announced at some point?
Let's actually think about this. Let's think about this for a second, right? So 2017 they had Mario Odyssey as a big selling game, right? But Xenoblade 2 also came out around that time. 2018 they had Smash and Pokemon Let's Go, right? Like just think about the sales numbers, right? Like Xenoblade 2 is not a Mario Odyssey selling kind of game. It sold 2 million, right? 2018 had Let's Go and Smash. Both sold 10 plus million. I mean, Smash is like 25 million. It's close to that, right? 2019, Sword and Shield, Luigi's Mansion 3, right? October and November. Those both sold well above 10 million. Well, there's a gap there, but the point is they're both like some of the best-selling Switch games, right? 2020 was a pandemic year, so we got Age of Calamity and Pikmin 3 Deluxe. 2021, we got Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, and Metroid Dread, right?
And
SMT5, and actually Mario Party.
Mario Party, yeah, we had a really packed.
Yeah, so even though Mario Party Superstars can go on to be a 10 plus million seller, hey, maybe Metroid Dread too.
I think it's well on pace for that already.
Yeah. So point is, there's got to be something more than just like a Xenoblade 3 or a Fire Emblem, because while that could be like maybe the B or C title, there's going to be an A title. It's just not, and I'm just talking about like sales potential here. Like Nintendo doesn't just put that out for the holiday. So it's got to at least
Sparks of Hope, because that's an 8 million seller. Sparks of Hope could drop October, and they got Breath of the Wild in November, and plus there's Pokemon, something Pokemon.
Maybe.
I mean, that's the thing. We are already talking about the current slate of known games already makes this, if not the best, the second best year of Switch already. So it's thinking about what makes sense to also add to that pile. There's a lot. Okay, we haven't had a new Mario Kart game in forever. Did they announce Mario Kart 9 this year? Okay, well then that already trumps every game that's coming out, because it's going to be, by default, the best-selling game of the year. That's just the way it is, because it's Mario Kart, and it's been so long, and the Switch user base is over 100 million. It's going to explode. I wouldn't be surprised if that quickly became the fastest-selling Switch game to date, if there's Mario Kart this year. But also, all of the expectations are out there that, they don't need Mario Kart 9 this gen. You're right, they don't. But they could also do a double gen release with Mario Kart 9. It could be, we're releasing Mario Kart 9 this gen. We're going to pop off for a quick 25 million sales, because that feels like a game. I know it feels weird to say quick 25 million sales. But Mario Kart's the kind of franchise this generation that I don't think within 2.5 years it's unrealistic to think it could sell 25 million units. Might sell past that. And then they could literally make the deluxe version and put it on the next system.
I just want to point out, while I agree with you that if they were to put Mario Kart 9 out, say, for this Christmas, it would sell heaps and bundles, right?
I think Mario Kart 9's coming, it's this year. Or we're not getting it this gen.
I mean, I think we're already too late. But I mean, could it come out this year and still sell really well? Absolutely.
Like, let's say Furukawa was saying, look, Switch has the next 3 years. Okay, fine. You release it this year. Or you don't bring it out. You wait. You save it. But again, we don't know how long Nintendo internally is looking at the Switch life cycle. So.
Right, and then that obviously and also how they transition, because how they transition also matters as well. Right, it's not just the timing; it's how they transition.
They could drop Mario Kart 9 as a cross-gen title in the final year of Switch. Like, they just might not even.
Right, and I'm okay with. I think that can happen. It'll be fine. But also, what do they do a situation where like Switch games are still Switch games, and they just have a more powerful piece of hardware, and it's like an iPhone thing where like it's just the games will just look and run better on the newer Switch, right? Like it'll be almost like
they probably won't even consider it a new generation. Then they'll just go, huh? All right.
It'll have the power of a new generation and the features of a new generation, but the games will still work on both. Your games will just look and run better on the newer hardware. Huh?
Game Boy Color did it.
Kind of like Game Boy Color. And eventually they'll have some exclusives, right? But ultimately, like they could do that. It's tricky. It's really tricky.
There's so much hypotheticals right now.
There's one point I wanted to make though.
The only thing we know, Nintendo does have next gen in the works because they've responded to questions about it and said we're thinking about it and we're thinking about how we're going to transition, and that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't be surprised if Switch OLED is the last new revision for Switch before we move on to the next generation. It's been every 2 to 2.5 years for hardware.
With the OLED version of the Lite.
Yeah, like a smallish revision, but like nothing that's like.
Yeah, it'll be like, extensive. We're going to increase. That'll make people like, we're going to increase the price of the Lite to $250 now with an OLED version. All right, well, whatever. You already did it once and got away with it. You can probably still get away with it now because everyone can't buy anything these days.
Yeah. There's still one point I wanted to make that goes a little bit back, because we were talking about maybe them doing like a deluxe for Mario Kart 9. Like, let's hypothetically say Mario Kart 9 comes out this year, then the next year or within the next couple of years, Switch 2 comes out, and they want to like do a deluxe version of it. They could do it. I'm not saying they can't do it, but it won't be nearly as impactful because one of the main reasons why a lot of these Wii U ports have been so successful is because barely anyone who has a Switch had a Wii U. So most people have a Switch. They're new to these Wii U ports are new games for them, right? So like most people have Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. So and if they put out Mario Kart 9, a lot of people will get Mario Kart 9, and those same people will probably get Switch 2. Not as many are going to double dip. It's not going to be the same situation. It just won't be as successful if it's just a deluxe because of how successful the Switch was. So it's just a different situation. It could still happen. I'm just saying it's not going to be like a 40 million seller. It just won't be. Unless they add like
pack all the DLC in. Who knows?
Well, I mean, all right. I mean, depending on, I'll give you, there's some flexibility there depending on what they add in there, but I still think it just won't be nearly as successful. But it could still be worth it. If it sells 10 million on Switch 2, it's still worth it.
My expectation for next gen is that we're not going to get a new Smash Bros. Game. It's just going to be the current game with all DLC repacked together for the new system. Because I think there's just going to be a 4K really update. Long gap before we get a new one. And the thing is, well, how well will that sell? I don't know. It could still sell over 10 million. Beats the hell out of me. I don't know. We're projecting the success of a future platform. The success of that platform is going to largely determine the sales. So
Yeah.
But do I think it's worth doing it and that they can milk it and make more money? Yeah. We've already seen them do it. And I know Wii U was a failed generation, but still, like.
Yeah.
Strike while the iron's hot.
If they do if they do it like if they do a Game Boy Color situation where the games will still work on the new system, right? It just run better. Like they could just it's like people who already have Smash Ultimate will do it. It just sort of maintains evergreen status on the new hardware, and maybe they do an update to kind of bolster that a little bit. 4K update with all the DLC included.
Maybe it's got 4K upscaling now or something.
Yeah.
Whatever they want to advertise that you have to get this version for.
Yeah. And maybe they do have like a DLC expansion, right? Like they add, here's another 6 characters with 6 stages. Something.
Sure, I mean that's possible.
Right.
I also think like the one thing with Ultimate is I think Sakurai mentioned that like something like this will probably never happen again because getting all those IP rights was so difficult.
So
that
Better to
like,
just
it would
keep
make
the
sense
same
that
game.
Let's just milk this another gen because we're never going to be able to
Yeah.
do this again. You know.
Right. I think you just keep Smash Ultimate as it is for a while. I mean, look at the legs Melee had. You gotta hope Smash Ultimate has some legs, right? And it's proven to be, so it's still selling.
I think it's the best-selling fighting game of all time, and it's not even close. So like, it would make sense if there was any game. Okay, we're milking another gen. It would be Ultimate. Like, no reason. So, question: what do you expect then? So we talked about some of the rumors. What are you expecting at this potential direct this month? Water break.
Yeah. My voice has been sore the last few weeks. It's actually getting better. I haven't had a situation where I've been like gagging. It's been happening a lot every 2 weeks.
I haven't drank anything yet, but
yeah, I always drink water during the podcast. That's what I do.
All good.
I mean, in terms of expectations, like they're pretty basic. I expect them to talk about Kirby. I expect them to talk about maybe DLC for Dread. If there's gonna be DLC, it won't be paid DLC. I think it'll be like a free DLC update. They're gonna talk about Advance Wars. They're gonna talk about Splatoon 3 is gonna be the big focus of the direct. Like when they make the announcement, Splatoon 3 maybe even mentioned in like the tweet, like, hey, we're gonna have a Nintendo Direct on such and such date. We're focusing on Splatoon 3 and other spring titles. That's what they're gonna do. I'm expect another update for Monster Hunter Rise. If
Sunbreak update.
Yeah, exactly. A Sunbreak update. There will be at least 1 to 2 published. Maybe 2 to 3 Nintendo games announced. I'm predicting either Fire Emblem or Xenoblade Chronicles 3. I don't know about both. I'm not saying it's impossible at both, but like I think at least one of those is announced during the direct. And I also think that something Zelda will be mentioned at the direct. So either A, we get another teaser for Breath of the Wild 2, or they give us Twilight Princess and Wind Waker HD, and they say, hey, we'll show you more about Zelda later this year, or they'll announce the delay. Like, there will be something Zelda at the direct. I expect that. Metroid Prime will not be mentioned. That's an E3 thing. Don't expect that. It will not be if it's mentioned. Great, but it's not going to happen until E3. I can tell you that. This is not me like providing any sort of like insight or anything. It's just I hardcore believe that Metroid Prime remake will not be announced until E3. It just screams an E3 announcement. But maybe at least a free Dread DLC update. And that's pretty much it in terms of my expectations. Are you any different?
No, I mean it's pretty much. And my expectations are pretty. I mean, reality
the
is
1-2 Switch thing. There'll be some sort of casual thing. I expect one.
Yeah, I mean, like when they mentioned some casual game in the works, it was that nobody wants. I'm like, okay, well for starters, you not wanting something doesn't make nobody because games sell. I
was a big fan of Game Builder Garage. Love it.
Yeah, so like, well. Whatever. I'm kind of to see, what casual game's going to be. Nintendo's got a huge audience that they got to cater to. So it'll be interesting to see what they talk about. I expect to get updates on basically anything that's coming from now until, let's say, June. I don't think July, August, they'll wait. They'll wait to talk about that. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll tell us a date for July. But I think through June we'll get updates. I think they'll tease. I don't know that they'll tease a game. See,
there is one other game that I didn't mention.
Big games that they won't tease anything for 2023 right now. I think they might tease something for later this year that hasn't been announced yet, but they won't give us a date. And then people will speculate, is that even coming this year?
Let's think about this for a second. This time last year,
they ended it with Splatoon 3.
Right. And on that note...
And they said, that's 2022.
Right.
Right away, it's 2022.
Right. So this time last year, like right before the Direct, what did we know about this year? Because Legends Arceus wasn't announced until at the end of the month. Right? Splatoon 3 was announced until the Direct. Right? Breath of the Wild 2, we knew it was in development, but we didn't know when it was coming out. right?
Yep. We knew about Breath of the Wild 2, Bayonetta 3, Metroid Prime. Those games were already
Right,
announced.
but with no specified release year, right? So at this point, we don't know about anything for 2023. So I'm just kind of curious. When do we start?
Now that we do know.
What?
I said this is different because obviously now we do know a bunch of games for this year. But yeah.
Right, for this year. But I'm just trying to think, at this point last year, what did we know about games for this year? Right? Like, we learned about Splatoon and Legends Arceus in February. Right?
Yep.
Bayonetta 3 and Kirby we didn't learn about until last spring. Breath of the Wild 2 we didn't get confirmed until E3. Same thing with Mario Rabbids. So it's almost like we learned about like 2 games per like news months for Nintendo of the big releases. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's sort of. I'm not saying they have to follow that, but it wouldn't surprise me.
I would not be shocked to see a game for 2023 teased now. As an example, we have a whole bunch of big games coming this year, and let's say they decide to tease, oh, by the way, the next great, Mario game is coming, and here's like a brief little 30-second clip. See you in 2023. Okay, fine. Especially if they just got done showing off Splatoon 3, Breath of the Wild, or whatever else for this year. Be like, look, we have an incredible this year. By the way, we ain't done in 2023. We're already going to hype you for it before you've even completed this year. I can see them wanting to do something like that. I think they have so much coming this year that we won't get teases for next year until summer. Is my presumption at this point.
I think
just because they have too much marketing to do this year.
Yeah.
Like last year they didn't. You kind of made the point. They had nothing to market. There was like nothing. The latter half of the year really came together right when we got to the end of February through June.
That's a good point.
That really built up the latter half.
Because this is a much
of the year.
stronger year. Like when we think about 2017, we didn't know about well, first of all, the first half of 2018 sucked. But like it was we could be going to 2023 like thinking, man, there's not much this year, is there? Then they'll fill it out, but
yeah,
I think I'm inclined to agree that we're not gonna have as good of an understanding of 2023 as we did for 2022 going into it.
I think we'll know about one big game for sure next year, and we're not going to find out about that game till at least summer, if not
I wouldn't be surprised if Metroid Prime 4 is teased at E3. Like they show a Prime remake and they'll say, hey, here's a quick little glimpse of Prime 4. We're aiming for next year for this one.
Yeah.
Right. And then if I'm right about the Pokemon thing, right, we'll have a Pokemon presentation before summer, right? And they'll say, hey, we're aiming for this to come out early next year. Right. So we'll know about at least Pokemon and maybe Metroid by the end of the year. And I wouldn't be surprised. The September Direct for this year will maybe confirm a couple things as well, like maybe say Pikmin 3 for next year. Like I could see that. And if I'm right about not Xenoblade and Fire Emblem, one of those also maybe gets slotted into next year. I know if a couple people are asking about Donkey Kong. I just don't see it coming out this year, right? I hope I'm wrong. I think that's a next year thing. So, yeah.
We'll see. We will see.
Absolutely.
It'll be interesting. I do think one major third-party game will get revealed.
Where's that Resident Evil
I don't
game?
think it's gonna be the Batman collection. The Batman collection might be in it.
Yo, when you made that video about Nintendo buying Capcom, I believed it. I was like, oh god, it's real. And then I clicked on your video. I was like, oh, you monster.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Like, they're not buying Capcom. By the way, the idea of Nintendo spending $5.2 billion on anybody is completely laughable. That would be half of their cash assets. They're not doing that. They're not as liquid as all these other companies, even though they're the richest company in Japan. That's just how much cash they have. They're not going to blow their wad.
Is it even worth it for them?
It doesn't make sense. Although Nintendo was very interested in their response to that. When they were asked about acquisitions, they basically said, look, we're not going to do it.
Unless...
It doesn't really feel right. But if one of our partners comes under an acquisition request,
we ain't losing
like them. We ain't backing up. So like, and I kept thinking Capcom's the one. Microsoft or somebody comes after Capcom and tell no. You're gonna take Monster Hunter from us? We don't think so.
But does Capcom need the help though? I feel like they're doing pretty well.
No, it's not about needing help. It's about money. They come in and offer you double the value of your company. Now, by the way, guys, it's very hard for American companies to take over Japanese companies anyways. That's why it's much more likely Sony would make a purchase like that versus Microsoft.
Didn't Sony just buy? Who did Sony just buy?
But Nintendo's base response was, none of the companies that we directly work with are even impacted, so we're not worried about it. But if, by chance, one of those companies does get impacted, we feel like we would be forced to do something about it. So they're not going to buy anybody major unless, Platinum Games getting bought out? No, we can't just let that happen. We're getting involved in that. What other smaller studio? I'm trying to think. Any other, Grezzo. Someone decides, we want to buy out Grezzo.
That's not happening.
I don't know about that. That's one of our main partner companies. We're not going to let that happen. So, like, Nintendo's basically saying, we are going to react rather than be aggressive because we don't need to be.
Yeah, why are you going to spend money when you already have a good working relationship?
You bought Activision Blizzard? Okay, so we lose.
Do you think
Crash
Nintendo will
and
buy
Spyro
Mercury Steam? You think Nintendo will buy Mercury Steam? If they were threatened to, not saying they will,
if they were pressed. I think it's one of those, if Mercury Steam becomes like Next Level Games where they start to basically just make Nintendo games, then sure. Yeah. It's just more of a common sense purchase.
They're not there yet, though, by the way. Like, they made one.
No, they're not there yet.
Yeah, like, they're working on something non-Nintendo right now.
Platinum doesn't want to be bought, but if it ever gets to the point that Platinum's only making games for Nintendo, it's kind of a common sense purchase.
Yeah.
That's what Next Level Games was. It was a common sense purchase. It wasn't, Nintendo didn't press them to buy out. The owner contacted Nintendo and said, hey, I kind of want to be done. The owner was not one of the creatives. That was the big reason why didn't Nintendo buy Retro Studios? Because the owners were the creative minds. Without them, they didn't think there was a lot of value in the company. Turns out they were right on that decision. Same thing here. Well, the owner of Next Level Games at the time wasn't the creative mind. So they were fine by, Next Level Games getting rid of the CEO and stuff. So, Nintendo makes common sense purchases. The biggest one I think they ever made was when they bought Monolith Soft. I think they spent $299 million on that purchase for Monolith Soft.
What a purchase!
Which is a big purchase for Nintendo. They don't make purchases like that often. They obviously saw a lot of value in Monolith Soft, and if you see what Monolith Soft does for Nintendo now, it was definitely working for them.
I think some people may
helped out with the biggest Nintendo games.
Right, like it's not just their Xenoblade games. It's what they do on the back end for all their other projects. They help out with Splatoon, Animal Crossing, Zelda.
And, hey, we help Zelda become open world. We help this, we help that. We have teams helping everywhere in Nintendo, and we're still making our own projects. That's how much Nintendo valued them back in 2007, and it's obviously worked out for them. But again, $299 million sounds like chump change to what's being tossed around out there right now. So, Nintendo.
Who did Sony buy out, by the way? I forgot who they bought. I know Bethesda bought.
Sony bought Bungie.
That's
what you're thinking of?
Yeah. Isn't it
$3.6 billion for Bungie?
Isn't it fascinating how Sony follows up the Microsoft purchase by buying Bungie? It's like, hey, we know that Bungie is the developer that made your best series.
Yeah, I know that these deals are in the works for months, folks, but it feels like a reactionary purchase.
Well, maybe it was, but they knew about it months in advance, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, they could have known that Activision Blizzard was going down before it was ever publicly announced. So,
and just last year they bought Bethesda, right? Like, what's next from Microsoft?
Yeah, they bought ZeniMax, which included Bethesda and id Software, and a few other companies.
It's crazy. Like, I'm not even like, I know some people don't like that they're sort of like everything's being consolidated, but I'm just kind of like looking at Microsoft like, damn, you're making power plays, right? Like, I'm just kind of like impressed at what they're doing.
I'm impressed that Phil Spencer's getting the okay to spend this kind of money, because to understand, if you ever glance at Microsoft's financials, they're incredible. They're a multi-trillion-dollar company, but their gaming sector has been bleeding money for decades, and he got them to approve a near $70 billion purchase after they just spent $7.5 billion, and they haven't even seen the fruits of that purchase yet, and they got this approved. And then not only got that approved, got them to say, you know what, Phil, we trust you so much, we're going to let you create your entire own board of directors to run the entire gaming sector and just give you the backing of our unlimited funds. Have a good day. Phil's like a kid in a toy store. He can just do what he wants. Oh, we want to buy this company. Oh, we're going to push Game Pass, create a subscription services that bleeds us money for the next decade. But guess what? We're going to be able to boast 150 million subscribers in 10 years. He gets to live the dream. He gets to basically do, this is my vision, and I have the unlimited backing of money to make it happen. Like,
so
that is
I
awesome.
haven't
Like,
bought. Yeah, I haven't
Good for
bought a
Phil.
PS5 or a Series X yet, right?
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what. If the next thing that if Microsoft purchases is from software, then I may never just buy. I may just buy an Xbox and never look at PlayStation again. Like,
Well, let's put it this way: it's gone from the Xbox being a laughing stock with the Xbox One back when it was announced, Sony destroying them, the whole forcing Connect in the box, unsure if you really own your games or how you can share games with friends, and it was just a mess, a hot mess. Oh, you can run your cable TV box through it because that's what people want to do. But it's gone from that to the now CEO of Microsoft Gaming, Phil Spencer, the brand new Microsoft Gaming board formed in the last few months, is now getting a Lifetime Achievement Award at the DICE Awards. He's pulled that off from the launch of Xbox One and taking over Xbox to today. He's had that much of an impact on gaming and obviously Microsoft Gaming. And I know not everyone's for these acquisitions, and that's all fine. I understand all the arguments against it, just like I understand the arguments for it. All I know is if you get into that Xbox ecosystem, you got to be pretty happy because it's just value after value after value. MLB The Show, sure, I could buy it on Switch, and I might buy it on Switch out of curiosity. I have it already on my Xbox because I'm already a Game Pass subscriber. I don't have to technically buy that game. I don't technically buy Halo Infinite or Forza either when that came out. Like, he has created this value in gaming that, by the way, this could have a very evil end to it all. Can't ignore there could be, it's all good now. 10 years from now might not be so good.
well, I mean, that's kind of how it goes, right? Like when you're low, you have to play nice, right? But once you become the top dog, you can afford to not be nice anymore. And then what happens? Like it's a cycle.
But Phil Spencer, the only thing that's giving people a little bit more faith is more so because Phil Spencer's just been busy walking the walk the whole time. And he seems very, and this is where you get tricky, he seems very genuine. So it seems like he wouldn't be the person that in 10 years says, okay, now that we have you all, time to fuck you over. But
also the thing is,
we don't know.
Even if it's good right now, it's not always gonna be the same people in power all the time, right? Like these things change over time. Like there's no guarantee one thing will be the way it is. But I'll also say there are philosophies that a company can have that can be instilled and followed consistently, right? So if there are certain philosophies that are followed, then even if the staffing changes over time or the people in power change over time, if those philosophies stay intact, then you're still gonna get the general feel of that company. A great example, Nintendo. Like, yes, have they evolved and changed over the years? Yeah, but it's only been progression. There's always been a focus on gameplay, right? There's always been a focus on being family friendly. Like, those things have always kind of been there, right? You never really see scandals or anything of that ilk from Nintendo. Why? Because there are certain philosophies that have stayed intact throughout. Like, there's a company culture that they follow, right? And it's not just Nintendo, but there are other companies like that, right? So if Microsoft and the Xbox team have certain cultures instilled, maybe they won't become evil overlords 10 years from now. Maybe. Maybe.
It's all about, the end goal obviously is that this is going to make them billions and billions and billions of dollars every year, and that's fine. I think it's kind of like complaining about Netflix. Netflix bled money for 10 years too, and now it's one of the most profitable streaming services in the world. Like, it's all an investment in the future, and as long as people consuming are happy, they're happy. Obviously, we always get upset when the prices increase. That's just the way it goes. Companies want to make more money, they increase the prices. Until it gets to a point that you don't want to pay anymore, then don't pay. So, yeah, I honestly think that good for him, good for Phil Spencer, good for the industry on the whole. I think the acquisitions are obviously really interesting. I know, to me, it kind of feels like these major companies are sitting and playing a giant game of Risk, and they're just taking over certain parts of the world and just hoping that it works out and that they can hold it. But we'll see. Nintendo's not going to do anything clearly until they're pressed into action. And they might not get pressed into action because Conveniently, most of their partners are in Japan, which are the hardest companies to take over due to government regulations.
Also,
and
Nintendo,
know, like Microsoft and Sony aren't done.
Yeah, it's a age-old pissing contest between the two. Like,
I mean, Jim Ryan literally said, you know, the guy from Sony here in the U.S. literally said, "Oh, we're buying more." He just flat out said, "We're buying more." Hasn't even been approved for Bungie yet. Oh, we're not done. We're buying more.
It's fascinating, right? Because so like, Microsoft bought several developers a few years back, right?
Yeah.
Then they buy Bethesda. But then
they got Psychonauts and all that stuff.
Yeah, and then they buy Bethesda. Well, I mean, they also acquired like Minecraft, and you know, they've been making acquisitions.
They bought up that a long time ago.
Yeah, but I mean, they've been continuously making more and more acquisitions. They buy out Bethesda. Now they buy out Blizzard. Like the amount of franchises and like properties they have now under them, like. I know people made the argument before, but like they could make their own Smash game. Like they have the roster, like they have it. It will not be as good as Smash because you need a Sakurai, and then also I feel like Nintendo characters are more suited for that kind of thing. But you know, they got a roster, so you know they could definitely.
It makes more sense to do like with the IPs they have, make a giant battle royale that crosses. Gameplay types. So you have your shooters that use weapon types.
I think it has to be kind of like Fortnite.
It's like Smash Bros, but it's a battle royale style like game instead. We're like, okay, but then you bring in your orcs that have like their axes like, and all that crap.
I would think it would be like a 3D like battle royale. When I say Fortnite, like a 3D, but not like Smash Bros, where it's like a 3D battle royale. And to your point, like each character would have its own gameplay style. So this would be like this huge, like epic, ambitious thing.
And nothing like that exists yet, and that would just be insane.
Yeah, it would be really
I would
cool.
be all for that.
Yeah, there's a good chance it would flop if they don't put the right talent behind it. But
it's a severely risky and highly expensive game to make.
Yeah.
So.
Man, I wish Scalebound.
But I would love it. I'd love it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I feel like we've pretty much covered the topics at least at a surface level. How about we get into the chat and then we'll call it a night, unless there's anything else you want to sort of focus on.
I'm good. You can get to the chat and see what's up.
Let's get to the chat. Hello, chat. You exist. We haven't forgotten about you. Let's see here. I think, Nick D, I saw your question about Donkey Kong. Donkey Kong is real, in my opinion. It's just a matter of time. And just based off what I've seen and heard, and I'm not trying to imply like inside stuff, just like from what we know, the energy, whatever you want to call it, my intuition suggests no Donkey Kong this year. Maybe it's teased, maybe it's announced, but it's just like you look at the games we already know about for this year, and then if you factor in the things that are rumored for this year, there's just not much room. That's kind of the problem, right? Like, let's assume Xenoblade Chronicles 3, Fire Emblem, and the 1-2 Switch sequel all come out this year in conjunction with the Mario Rabbids, the Splatoon 3, the Bayonetta 3, the Breath of the Wild 2. Like, where does it fit? I can see... there is room, I guess, right? But, like, I don't know. I feel like almost maybe we get, like, a 2D Mario first. Because there is a Mario movie coming, right? So, like, maybe you want to get something Mario out sooner than later. And then there's also the Mario Kart 9. Like, there's just so much. And then there's always next year. And I actually feel like next year makes more sense to have Mario properties come out, because you follow up the success of the movie with these Mario properties. I feel like it makes more sense to benefit from the sales afterwards as opposed to beforehand. That's my take on it. So I'm expecting some pretty good like Mario Universe stuff, like Donkey Kong, Mario Kart, Super Mario, but just kind of like maybe next year. I could be wrong on that. Maybe we see at least one of those things announced for this year. Maybe Mario Kart 9 and Zelda are the big holiday releases, for example. Like, I don't think it's out of the question, because both of those games have been in development for years. Like, they both could be ready. So, you know, it's tough to say, but it's just, there's just so much right now, and there isn't like any like solid rumor or anything suggesting that Donkey Kong is ready for this year. So, you know, I'm just gonna err on the side of probably not yet.
Not yet.
What do you say, Nate? Do you think Donkey Kong is getting announced anytime soon? You still believe it's real?
I think there's a new Donkey Kong game somewhere. Whether or not it comes out, could be a canceled project. I don't know. If the DK movie thing's coming too, say that's going to be a movie next year or something, cool. Then why not have a game come out next year for it then?
Yeah. But I just don't see it getting announced until maybe not this soon. I think we got to wait.
September. It could be like Kirby. Kirby was announced September.
Yeah.
Announced DK in September.
Yeah.
For next year.
Yeah, exactly. That's my train of thought. Like maybe they announced that at E3, but more likely September, I think. Also, I appreciate you making a distinction. Andres, not Andreas. I hate that. I hate Andreas. It's not my name. People do it a lot, but it's fine. Let's see here. There's a number of chats here. B. James, Xenoblade Chronicles 3, new Donkey Kong Prime for all 2023. Yeah, maybe. Like that, you could, yeah. I want Xenoblade Chronicles 3 sooner than later, but heck, I'll accept an announcement this year, just so I can see a little bit of it, speculate on it, and sort of just dream about it. But I could see it coming out next year. Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, if it comes, we'll see. This year or next year.
I mean, it's like there's so many games coming this year. I'm not really disappointed if any of the speculated games are next year. Like, that's fine. Next year needs games.
Right.
You know? Yeah. I'm cool. That just means if these games are next year, that means Switch is super healthy next year too, and that's a good sign.
Yeah. It's really funny, right? Like, it's not hard to imagine a solid lineup for this year and next year based off what we know, right? Like, we know a Fire Emblem game's in development. We know a Xenoblade game's in development. We know something from the Mario Kart team is in development, right? We know the Mario team's working on something. We know there's like 10 different EPD Nintendo teams. There's a handful of games that are just at the ready, right? Retro Studios hasn't released anything, so like, there could be something from them. Next Level Games is probably about ready for another game as well. Like, it doesn't account for any potential like third-party partnerships. Like, there's just a lot, and it's a benefit to how Nintendo is right now, where they have consolidated their resources onto one platform, so they can maintain a consistent release schedule. And it's interesting, right? Because we were just talking about how Sony and Microsoft are making all these big acquisitions. Even if Nintendo's put in a scenario where I mean, the truth is, the Switch doesn't have third-party support like we always wanted Nintendo to have, right? Like, the Switch doesn't have the same sort of support as Microsoft or Sony. And it basically just comes down to the hardware, right? The hardware doesn't really support it in the same way. But instead, what you get are consistent high quality, some of the best games in the industry coming from out Nintendo all throughout the year consistently. And also because of those strong sales and because of the hybrid nature of the Switch, it's a flexible sort of like way to play games. There's a lot of reason for developers to go back to some of their older games and put it on the system, because more people will play it on that system because of the multiple form factors it has, right? So getting all those indie games on there, some of the older third-party games on there. So there's actually a slew of games available on Switch. It's just not the biggest, baddest multi-platform games that are coming out now. And that's fine. That's fine. Between the indie stuff, the older third-party games, and then the consistent Nintendo games, like, there's a really strong lineup on Switch. You don't really need the other stuff, even though I'd like it, but there's just so many games to already play, it's not necessary. And I don't see a situation where Nintendo has to really worry about some of these acquisitions. To Nate's point, they're probably not going to buy any of the bigger Eastern brands. So I think Nintendo's pretty much going to stand packed where they're at, and they're going to be fine. And they're still investing and expanding upon their current teams, and then they have their partners, and they'll buy them if they have to. So, yeah, it's just a golden age of Nintendo, it feels like.
It is. Very, very golden. I've never experienced an age like this anyways. I've been doing this a long time. Oops.
Yeah. It's never been like this. Because even during the Wii era, like, it was like a false sense of like supremacy, because it was all just like casuals. It wasn't like a hardcore audience. The Switch is like a core. It's a gamer audience.
Yeah.
it's very different.
Oh, but Twilight Princess. Okay, it sold 8 million. Okay, Breath of the Wild sold 25. So can we just stop now? Clearly, what were the big sellers? Wii Sports, Just Dance. Like, sure. Okay, yeah, you could say things like Galaxy sold really well. Mario Odyssey
Relative.
sold 25.
Yeah.
So like, can we just like stop the debate? Very clear. There's vastly different audiences between those two platforms.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. App for 100%. Yeah. Let's see here. Elemental Hero Shadow Link Dragon. Always a great name to read. When do you think we'll see Pokemon Presents? And there was a video talking lures and mysteries for Legends Arceus. Do you think it'll be a part of a DLC or DLCs for Arceus? So I don't know what that video was, right? But I do think there's a good chance for DLC for Legends Arceus. There have been some rumors suggesting that, and I think if Game Freak is going to wait a little bit to release Generation 9, I think you focus on Legends Arceus throughout this year, have DLC to add more content to that game to keep it going, but then also have updates to Sword and Shield and Pokemon Home. So you take the new Pokemon in Arceus, make them compatible with Sword and Shield, so that can still be a part of the competitive format for the year. And then early next year, you come out with Generation 9, and then you just move forward from there. So I do think there's a good chance for DLC. On the note of Pokemon Presents, there could be a Pokemon Presents this February. But because we just got Legends Arceus, I wouldn't be shocked if we wait a little bit later into the year for it. Either way, though, I kind of expect to get a good understanding of what's next for Pokemon in this Presents. They probably are going to come out with at least one more spinoff for the year. So maybe it's this month. Maybe we wait a few more months. We'll see. All right. All right. Dwan Davis is talking about a rumor for a February 19th Direct. Maybe? Is that what I'm seeing there? Let's see. Does that make sense? The 19th? Well, that's a Saturday. Maybe I misread the question, but I could see a Direct happening the week following, leading up to that, so the 17th. It could happen this week as well. If I'm going to make a prediction, I'll say we either get an Nintendo Direct this upcoming week or the week after. I'm kind of thinking... I'm always going to think later than sooner just because I feel like it's safer that way. But it could happen this week. It could happen next week. Rarely they happen that last full week of the month, and rarely they happen the first week in the month. So it's usually the second or third week. So I'll stick with that.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Let's see here. Yeah, I'll wait like another few moments. If there's any more questions you guys have, you at me or Nate, we'll get to it, and then we're gonna call it a night. Let's see here. Harry Pooper, hello there. What do you think about Microsoft making a hero shooter? Master Chief vs. Conquer vs. Tracer vs. Banjo vs. Doomslayer. Well, interesting that you say that actually, because well they did just buy out Blizzard, right? Who they have a certain hero shooter series that's pretty popular. They could probably take that framework and then smashify it to your point and have all these characters in there. It could work. They could do it. It'll work. It'll sell. IzzyXD1019. What if there's a Breath of the Wild 2 Super Bowl commercial pop up during the Super Bowl and a confirmed name is revealed? No. As much as I'd love to see that.
I mean, that would be insane. It
would be so cool, but you never see new information like that that's blatant just come out in a commercial at the Super Bowl. Like, it might be a new trailer of a game we know about. I don't know, no. We're not getting a new Breath of the Wild 2 trailer there. If anything, it'll be a commercial for Legends Arceus. Yeah.
I could definitely see a Legends Arceus Super Bowl commercial.
Yeah, that would be it. Maybe it could be like a Switch OLED trailer or a Switch trailer that encompasses different games, and it might show Breath of the Wild 2, but it'll just be footage we've already seen. They're not going to show new footage of a game that hasn't come out yet at the Super Bowl. I can't think of it of a time that's happened. So if you guys know of any exceptions, let me know. But I don't expect that. Hello there, Super Chris. Thank you for modding, my friend. Novus Talks. He's adding the both of us, Nate. If Camelot started development on a new Golden Sun after Mario Gold Super Rush came out, when do you think it'll come out? I think 2025. The Camelot made the golf game, right? Is that what they did?
Camelot? Yeah.
No, wasn't that last year?
Yep. They made Mario Golf Super Rush. Yep.
Would they?
They did the Mario Sports game, Mario Tennis Aces. They did that one too.
Man, so it seems like they're on a 3-year cycle, right? Granted, that's making Mario Sports games, which are probably based off a similar engine. So if they were to just transition over to a just like a traditional sort of Japanese RPG kind of thing, I'm not saying it's impossible. It's just kind of like. Also, they can develop more than one game at once, in theory. I'll say. I mean,
Mario Strikers is what I got next.
Yeah, I feel like Mario Strikers. Right now they're being treated as Nintendo's sports game developer. Like you go back, the last time they made a game that wasn't a sports game was Golden Sun, Dark Dawn, 2010. So it's been over 10 years. Let's just see a list here. 2012, Mario Tennis Open, Mario Golf World Tour in 2014, 2015, Mario Tennis Ultra Smash, 2017, Mario Sports Superstars, 2018, Mario Tennis Aces, 2021, Mario Golf Super Rush. So, maybe Mario Strikers. Granted, that's next level games, baby. So I don't know if maybe next level games handles that. But I mean, next level, maybe they could like work together, or at least get some like suggestions from next level games to make the Strikers game. But yeah, basically there's a trend here for sports games, so that's probably a more realistic expectation. But I would love to see Golden Sun. And we are seeing Nintendo kind of dip back into some of their older IPs like Metroid and maybe Donkey Kong, Advance Wars. So I don't think it's a stretch to think that we'll see a few more IPs revived during this generation. And Golden Sun, I think, is a candidate. So we'll see. We'll see on that. Alrighty. Harry Pooper, last question. Google is selling Stadia and admitting it is dead. Should Nintendo try to buy it just for the developer power and try to build their cloud and online service? No. I don't think so. I just don't see that happening. I don't see why Nintendo would buy Stadia. I don't even know how that would work, but maybe that's why I don't think it'll happen, because I don't really understand it. Yeah. Nate, do you see Nintendo buying any sort of Stadia-like property to better handle cloud gaming in the future?
No, the thing is, they're not really selling Google Stadia itself. They're licensing out the technology behind it to others, which is something they weren't willing to do before. And Nintendo technically already licensed Google for their voice chat. Their voice chat and their phone app actually runs through Google Chat. That's the backbone of their voice chat. So there is that working relationship there already. So it's conceivable if Nintendo ever wanted to offer a quote-unquote in-house streaming service that they license the Google Stream or whatever they're calling it. And then they use that as the backbone to set up a Nintendo streaming service. So like if Nintendo ever does get into streaming game services, I do think that this would be one of many technologies they would consider. Just like for voice chat, it was one of many they considered, and they went with Google. So I do think it'll be a consideration. But will they just outright buy out the technology so only they could use it? No, because that's actually not what Google's doing anyways. They're not outright saying you could just buy up Stadia and we don't have it anymore. That's not what they're saying. They're licensing the technology. So, yeah, we'll see. I think Google at this point is just looking to, hey, look what Microsoft's doing. You want to do what they're doing? Cool. Well, license our technology to do it. Like, we don't want all this money we invested in this. By the way, guys, Google Stadia, streaming-wise, is awesome. It just works. It literally just works. There's nothing wrong with the actual service of playing games. It was always about how they chose to sell the games to you, and then obviously the lack of library. So the technology is fine. So letting other people that might be willing to invest money in different ways use that technology makes sense for them to still profit off of all this investment they put in it, while somebody else offers a different delivery method. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know that Nintendo's interested in streaming services anytime soon.
I mean, they do a little bit of cloud gaming, but it's like, you know, just for when they can't get something
gaming,
else.
but they don't use Nintendo servers for it.
Yeah.
So I don't think Nintendo does much. So I think it's definitely conversations that they've probably had with Google since they already work with them. But I don't think that it's gotten to the point that Nintendo's seriously considering offering any sort of streaming service. So I don't know that. I don't know. Like there are streaming games on Switch, so anything could happen, I guess. But I'm just gonna say that I think Nintendo of all the companies is least concerned because look at the sales of their games. Why do they need to concern themselves with a streaming service right now?
Yeah.
And Nintendo is not very forward thinking and on top of things like this. So even if one day that's how we consume games, Nintendo will be the last company to get in the mix, and it probably will be 1/8 as good as everybody else. So
maybe, yeah. I mean, I think you raise a good point though, that Nintendo's software sales are so strong. Like, I just don't see it. Like, you know, for example, like Microsoft software sales don't really compare. Like we're talking about first party stuff, right? Like, and same thing with Sony. Like Nintendo has the best first party sales. That's what it is. It's not close. So it doesn't benefit Nintendo to go away from that.
Oh, we're sold over 10 mil. That's great. So we're at 40 mil on Mario Kart 8.
Yeah. It's just a different level.
It's just different worlds.
So, you know, different stuff. But I think that's pretty much all for now. Is there anything else you want to say, Nate, before we call it a night?
No, that was a good show. I'm glad we made time for it today.
Yeah.
I just said I made time for it. I know it's your show. But that I made time for it because I usually don't do much on weekends.
Yeah.
Besides my kids and homework. And literally right when I get off here, it's homework time. Yay.
I actually have some studying to do myself. So, yeah.
College homework sucks ass.
Yeah.
It's just stats tonight, which is fine. Statistics class isn't hard. It's just tedious. It's a lot of staring at numbers over and over and over again for hours on end. And it gets really old. And this is why I don't want to be an accountant or any sort of statistician. It's just
repetitious.
And here's the thing. What did we do on this? What did we just do on this? We looked at numbers. Those are the fun numbers. But I didn't have to compile the numbers. And stats is about compiling them. And I don't want to do that. I just want to examine it once somebody else did it.
You like looking at the product. Yeah.
Yeah. I like making speculation based on the end results, not creating the results.
Yeah. Anyways, guys, make sure to check out Nate Nintendo Prime. His channel is linked in the description below. Leave a like for the podcast. Stay tuned. Subscribe if you haven't already. Maybe join as a member. But that's all for now. Take care.